celebrate Women's Day today, it makes it all the more significant because I hope that the workshop is going to help you in making this society that we live in an inclusive space for all, and maybe all be able to uphold our rights that the Constitution has granted to us. So, on that note, and without wasting any further time, I think that we are beginning with the session on Know Your Rights. I welcome Nosheen, who is associated with Casey College since a long time. She's an alumni. She's an alum of Casey College, and has been, a support to the department, to the cell, and to Casey College in more than one way. So thank you, Nosheen, for always, being there for us. And our students that I know you love to interact with them. And I think Amrit, I will just request Amrit, my TY student, to introduce Nosheen formally to you all, and then we will begin.
Sure.
Amrit, over to you.
Am I visible?
Yes, you are.
So, good morning to all our teachers, our resource speaker, Nosheen ma'am, and everybody in attendance today. Today's session has been organized by Department of Sociology with the Gender Issue Cell and IQAC of Casey College. The session is about knowing your rights, and the speaker for today is Advocate Nosheen Yusuf. Advocate Nosheen is the founder partner at TKNY Advocates and TKNY Legal Reservoir. She has a rich experience of 17 years dealing in cases pertaining to matrimonial litigation, domestic violence, etc. She represents litigants in family courts, district courts, magistrate courts, session courts all across Mumbai and various other districts, in addition to taking up cases in the High Court. Nosheen ma'am has been conducting trainings for state and non-state stakeholders on various aspects of matrimonial litigation and sexual violence all across the country. She is keen on engaging with young minds as she believes in their potential and channelizing their energies into the right direction. She has served as a director to a Mumbai rights-based organization for 14 years, where she initiated various college programs and events during her tenure. Nosheen ma'am continues to identify and raise advocacy issues at the ground level to help make changes at large. She has done trainings for various internal committees and employee awareness programs under the POSH Act. She has been a part of the research team and helped with her inputs in the publication of the Handbook on Domestic Violence Act in the past. At present, Nosheen ma'am is a mentor and a consultant to a team of lawyers at Lucknow and Ranchi. We welcome you today, ma'am, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Amrit. That's really sweet of you for giving me a wonderful introduction. And once again, happy Women's Day to everybody over here. So we'll start with the session. I believe we've got 159 students. So the thing is that when we start out anything, I always emphasize as to what is the significance of this particular topic. Okay. The topic for today is Know Your Rights, wherein we will be covering in a nutshell rights pertaining to women in the sphere of domestic violence and in the sphere of sexual violence. Okay. It's very important as to why are we covering this particular session. Because rights are available everywhere. We can Google it up and we can probably check it out. Okay. Also, the fact is that when I deal with you in this particular session, I won't be talking only about the rights, but also about certain strategies, which probably you wouldn't be able to find it on the internet at all. Okay. It obviously goes with a note of caution that the strategy differs case-to-case basis. So you're not supposed to blindly apply anything which is being told to you. Okay. And God forbids, if you are stuck up, then please consult an expert for further things. Also, it's very important for us to understand that why are we talking about rights at this particular stage? For me, it is important because what I understand is that you're at a stage wherein probably after you finish your graduation or soon after college, you would be entering the workspace or probably getting married. Both the spaces have got a lot of pressure on you in terms of duties that you're supposed to discharge. But sadly, nobody talks about the rights in these spaces. So if you get married, you would be told how to be a good wife, how to be a good daughter-in-law, how to be a good mother-in-law. But God forbid, if you're in a problem, what are you supposed to do? You wouldn't be informed about it at all. Okay. You will also be told how dressed up you have to be at your wedding, which salon you have to go, and which jeweler you've got to consult. But God forbids, if there is a problem, what to do, how to go about with it, tolerate, not tolerate is something which is never ever being told to you. Okay. The same goes with rights at the workspace. God forbids, if you are a victim of sexual violence, how are you supposed to go about with certain things, and what are your rights pertaining to that? With men, it's very important for us to have a session with them, because your so-called innocent acts could actually take you somewhere which probably you don't want to land into. Okay. So we will be looking at this particular session from those aspects, wherein we'll be looking at such basic things which probably you might know, or probably you might not know, or probably nobody would have spoken to you about. The other thing is that I would be covering this session only in a nutshell, uppar se. Okay. I have been given approximately 3 hours, and I believe there would be a break of at least 10 minutes in between, because obviously for me to speak for such a long time would be difficult. So in 2 hours, 45 to 50 minutes, I can't give you the knowledge and my experience that I have it for the 17 years of my life. Okay. And 3 years of law. So 20 years of knowledge is something which obviously I can't give you in the next 2 hours, 50 minutes. Probably you would have a brain blast. So we'll just look at things which are crucial, which are important, which you need to know in the process. Okay. We'll start with sexual harassment at workplace. And we'll talk about sexual violence in general also. Okay. And we'll also thereafter look at how the rape laws have shaped over a period of years. I remember when we were as young as you, and probably people who have attended my session in the past have probably heard this particular story, that in 2002, there was this particular Sunil More rape case, which was all across in the newspapers. We were in our SYB at that point of time, and it was a sociology class at 7 o'clock in the morning. And we see it in the newspaper that there was this young girl, 17 years of age, along with her boyfriend. She was sitting at Marine Drive, maybe in a compromising position or whatever, not that we are aware of. But there was a constable who came over there, 2 constables in fact. And the constable said that, you come to the police station because you all are sitting in a compromising position, and that's not done. This is obscenity. You have to come to the police station. The girl and the boy were asked to come to the police station at around 5:30 in the evening. Subsequently, the boy was asked to leave. The police station was almost empty. The constable named Sunil More was drunk. It was sunset, and he raped that girl. The girl obviously couldn't take the trauma, and she started screaming. And when her screams were heard, people from outside started breaking up the police station and rescued the girl. An FIR was filed against Sunil More, obviously for rape, but also for the fact that how he has misused his position and trust of the child. The case went on, and finally he was convicted. We all know what was the fate of the case. But what really concerned us at that point of time as students of sociology, early morning, and we were like, I wish, and it was Dr. Leena Pujari ma'am's class which was going on. And we were discussing, and we were like, we wish that girl was aware that she couldn't be called to the police station during the evening time after the sunset. And we wish if she was aware about it, probably this particular situation would have never, ever come up in her life. Sadly, a lot of us are not aware about it till date, until and unless maybe there is something which is put out in the media with regards to this. But that point of time, we all felt that how important awareness is about your rights. even if you know a little bit of your rights, probably you could undo a lot of harm which is going to happen to you. Or probably something that you can foresee to a certain extent, to take care of yourself. And that was the point wherein we felt that there is something that whatever we do in our life, but it's important to create an awareness. Not necessary that the awareness has to be done at a larger level, but the awareness, even at the smallest level, you going back at home and talking to your mother or your sister or your aunt about this particular issue, discussing it with them, telling them their basic rights is such an important thing. So for me, I look at it at that level, that even if today there are 180 students who are listening to this particular session, and each one goes back and talks to one, obviously the figure would double. And I think that is the intervention that I look at. I don't look at changing the world entirely. I'm sorry, I'm too small of a person for that. But I look at changing myself. I look at contributing towards my knowledge to somebody else who could probably make a difference. And that's the reason why I'm here today. And I'm hoping that the boys over here are equally sensitive to this particular issue when they take it back and pass it on to the female folks of their families. And let me tell you, girls, that boys are also one of the biggest support systems that we have. They are sensitive to a lot of issues. And there are times wherein they are not sensitive, but that sensitivity needs to be inculcated and it grows over a passage of time. We all are socialized by our families in a particular way. We all are made up by the society around us. And when we get the necessary exposure, we get the necessary sensitivity as well. I remember while we were in college, there was this particular professor who used to touch the female students in a very inappropriate way. A lot of female students had a problem, but also the male students would have a problem because they would feel very offended that how could a professor touch this particular girl so inappropriately, But sadly, none of them had the courage to go ahead with it, to file a complaint against that professor because everybody felt that he was so influential. And I remember at that point of time, I, along with a few girls, we wrote a letter to the principal and we met her and we were very scared how do we address the issue. But the principal herself was so sensitive to the issue that she took it up and immediately that professor was transferred to another department, which had only male students, And then afterwards, probably an inquiry must have sat against him, not that we were aware. But things did happen because what we realized is that we came together as one. Had we been individuals, it was really difficult for us to, take this particular thing. But when we came together as one, we fought together as one, it really made a lot of difference. We supported each other as girls, as boys, and then we could see the difference. So what I feel is that there are people also ready to help you out. You just need to tap out to the right ones and you need to speak about it and obviously gather some support. As women also, what I realize is that there are very few women who will stand by themselves and they are really class apart, strongest in themselves. But also there are women who need a lot of support and a lot of time in their lives. And a lot of time I feel that support comes in from men rather than from the other women. And I really don't know why. Because this is the least that we could expect. Even in my office, you see, there are barely a few women who come alone. Mostly they are accompanied by their fathers or their brothers or their well-wishers. But what I realize is that the support system plays a very important role. And tomorrow, if you see a woman who's being harassed, the least that you could do is provide support to her. Provide a willing and a patient ear to her to listen, rather than judge her for what she is. Oh, you are a woman of easy virtue. How could you judge that? Or probably you are a woman who has so many male friends. So in case if this happened to you, you called for it. Or probably this man is such a nice man. He considers everybody as a sister, but the fact is he did not consider her as the sister, is something which needs to be taken note of. We need to stop judging women from our spectacles and need to look at the situation the way it is. And that is what I have seen, that whenever there is a case of sexual harassment at workplace, particularly, a lot of women are reluctant to talk because they feel they wouldn't be supported, because they feel they would lose out on their job, because they feel they would be stigmatized. And gradually, when they decide to do that, it's probably too late. And when it is too late, again they are judged and again they are considered as liars. I remember there was this particular lady who came to me, and she was a victim of sexual violence, sexual harassment at workplace. This was around 30 years ago, that she was working in a government organization. And she said that at that point of time, she became a widow at the age of 40. She was the sole breadwinner of the house with 2 children. And this particular supervisor of hers would constantly eye her because he thought it was a good opportunity for him to bang on. He would call her after office hours, he would ask her for coffee, he would ask her for sexual favors, and she declined it all the time. Later, when she retired, she approached me and she said, now I have retired and it's been 4 years of retirement. And I have gathered courage now to file a complaint. She approached me around 10 years back, 10, 12 years back. And now I've gathered courage to file a complaint. I did not have the courage at that point of time because it was not possible. I was the sole breadwinner of the family. I felt I would be stigmatized, ostracized, etc. So now that I have the courage, I'm coming and I want to do something. And it was informed to her that it would look like an afterthought. And even if you want to do it right now, you have to go to the police because that man has also retired. So how would you go about with it? And she said, okay, I'll think about it. But she just kept thinking and she did not come back. Obviously, her case would be weak because she was silent for so many years. But then the problem was, or probably she did not feel that reassured, which I also take the responsibility of. But it's also very important for us to give us a practical view to women who approach the legal system. Obviously, giving them an idea that what they are going to get into and how is it going to, shape up in the legal scenario. But this is the stark reality of a lot of women in their lives when they don't speak up. Taking this to my topic, to sexual harassment of women at workplace. What is sexual harassment? The law has a vast, huge definition of running into almost half a page. But I won't look at the technical legal jargons. I will just look at it in the layman's perspective of what is sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is anything which is sexual and which is unwelcome. Because if it is sexual and it is welcome, it is not sexual harassment. So if I'm having an affair with somebody in the office and I probably am sleeping around with him, it's not sexual harassment. I'm okay with it. Okay. Sexual harassment is something which is sexual and unwelcome. Let's say there is something which is unwelcome but not sexual. It is not sexual harassment. So, for example, I'm sitting in my college and every time my male professor comes to me and tells me, Nosheen, you are duffer, you're a fool, you don't know what to do. I've never seen a dumb student as you. This is unwelcome. But this is not sexual harassment because there is no sexual connotation. It calls for a disciplinary action. I can go and file a complaint against that professor or that person for putting me morally down. Okay. But there is a fine line in between. There is a fine line when this becomes sexual harassment. And there probably has a story behind it. There is a possibility that this professor or this supervisor once approached me behind the closed doors when there was nobody present around and asked me for sexual favors. There is a possibility I denied for the sexual favors. And now there is a possibility that it is coming out all in the open, wherein I'm humiliated, wherein I'm abused, wherein I'm mocked, wherein I'm put down before everybody, and my morale is broken because I did not succumb to the sexual favors. And now this person is openly harassing me in some other way. And this is the most common, significant way that we've seen as sexual harassment. This is creating a hostile work environment for you. And over here, by doing this professor, by putting me down and calling me dumb, is creating an evidence for himself. I'm being silent. I take it up silently. I don't know what to do. And one fine day, when my patience level breaks, and I go and file a complaint against the professor saying that, he sexually harassed me. And he turns around and he says, I did not sexually harass her, but I was the one who was correcting her. I was the one who was telling her that she needs to improvise. And because she did not improvise, now she's coming up with a false case of sexual harassment against me. And for us as people, we see only what is seen. We don't go beyond. We don't ask the woman the story. We are very quick to judge her and tell her that, listen, you have misused the sexual harassment law. And for the woman, it is so difficult to prove because whatever sexual harassment happened behind the closed doors. But the way that he came back on her happened before everybody. And I filed my complaint thereafter. And people think that I'm the one who's responsible and I'm the one who's taking it up. And I'm the one who's misusing the law. And probably because of his behavior, there is a possibility that I have suffered work-wise also. There is a possibility I'm reporting late to work. There is a possibility my performance is going down. And this is being misused against me to say that I'm not competent enough. And when people cook up a story to say, oh, she was not competent because she was corrected, and now she's come back with a story of sexual harassment. And these are the kinds of cases which you will find in abundance. So, my dear friends, what I want to tell you is that before judging another woman, just put yourself into her shoes and look at things beyond. Because sexual harassment, nobody is going to sit below the CCTV camera. We've got CCTV cameras at most of the places in organized sectors. Nobody is going to be under the CCTV camera and harass you. Nobody is going to openly harass you. Yes, there are few people who do that. And it becomes a clear-cut evidence. There are few people who do write messages, who do write emails. It becomes a clear-cut evidence, but not all the time. So you will come across cases like these. And obviously, when these cases come up, the committee has to take up these cases. The committee cannot prima facie dismiss these cases saying that, oh, you have misused the law, because you have to conduct an inquiry. You have to figure out whether she's a victim or not. And this becomes very important for the committee. And this is the role of the Committee of Sexual Harassment. Also, let's say that, there is something which is welcome in sexual. So there is an affair wherein a girl and the guy are dating each other in the office. And probably they are going around. It's not your business to judge her. But there is a possibility that they have broken up. There is a possibility that the man is now harassing her of misusing probably some videos of theirs, which they have taken during intimacy. And her work is getting affected and she's being tormented. This becomes a case of sexual harassment. So what I want to say is that there is a fine line wherein no sexual harassment becomes sexual harassment. And for us, it's very important that we cannot dismiss. And anyways, the law says that you cannot prima facie dismiss the complaint. You have to conduct an inquiry. There is no other way out. All right. So this is something which you need to be very much aware about. Sexual harassment is also creating hostile work environment, anything which is unwelcome and which is sexual. Sexual harassment is also third-party harassment. So I remember when we were in college, so we had a very adventurous college life, and we loved it and we still miss it. So when we were in college, we were latecomers. Aram se 8 baje aane ka, subah 7 baje ka lecture. Now, one fine day, we reached the college at 6:30. It was a winter morning, and there were barely 5, 7 students. Okay, all of us were girls. There was one boy who was our senior who was in TY, and we were in SY or FY. And 6:30 in the morning, it was quite dark, and all of a sudden, we hear a girl screaming from the other lift. And we were like, oh, freak, what has happened? And then when we went running, we realized the girl was inside the lift and she was screaming. And there was a trespasser who had entered the college premises, and probably he was drunk. And he was with the girl in the lift molesting her. And we were like, what do we do? We were just 5, 6 students and we were screaming out of our lungs. And there was this boy, and we expected this boy to be a hero, to be a savior, because boys are supposed to protect. That is how the Indie cinema shows it, sadly, as if, there is a prince coming on a riding horse to save you. And the poor chap who's as young as us, and we look up to him as to please do something. And the poor chap was equally scared, and we need to identify that men could be also scared, and appreciate the fact that they are like us. And we were like, okay, forget it now. What do we do? We started screaming. The boy also started screaming for help. And then there were all these peons that assembled. And we were like, please save her. They all went on to every lift. And there afterwards, they rescued that girl somehow. And the principal was also there in the college. She came, okay, what happened? And she called the police and immediately handed up that particular man, because she was a no-nonsense person. She was like, I'm going to take an action against this. And the man was handed over to the police, and we were like, oh God, what has happened? We were scared, and we were pacified by our professors. And what we realized is that there is sexual harassment, which is third-party harassment, okay? Wherein the person who's sexually harassing you at the workplace is not somebody who you know. Okay, so there is somebody who you know, maybe your colleague or your friend or your classmate or your professor or your supervisor, or probably, you go outside for a meeting, another colleague of yours. But there could be third-party harassment, wherein a total stranger probably comes and harasses you in your organization. This is also sexual harassment at workplace, and your employer or your management owes a responsibility to call the police and assist you in every possible way to file a complaint against that person. Be it assisting through the police, be it assisting through the medical, be it assisting through the lawyer. It all has to be done for you free of cost by the organization. It's a matter of your right, come whatever may. Okay. And if you desire to file a police complaint, all possible assistance has to be provided to you. Okay. So this is another important aspect with regards to third-party harassment. Third-party harassment could be by an unknown person, the example that I gave you, or it could be by a known person. So let's say, for example, I'm at TKNY sitting in my office. I come down to KC College over there, and somebody from KC College teases me or sexually harasses me. As KC College organization management, they owe the responsibility to pick up that employee and file a complaint against that employee, and have a committee being set up to look into that particular complaint of my sexual harassment. Because it is an employee of the organization of yours, you have to take it up. Same in case if you come down to my office and you are being harassed, I owe a responsibility towards you. So in sexual harassment, there could be third-party harassment also, wherein the person could be known or it could be unknown. If the person is known, the organization owes the responsibility of conducting an inquiry, filing the police complaint. And if the person is unknown, then the organization obviously owns the responsibility of, helping you out in all the possible way. All right. So this is how you go about with things. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little distracted because I've just got a call. Just give me 1 minute. Yes, apologies. So this is how sexual harassment law does shape up. This is what is the meaning of sexual harassment. This particular thing, sexual harassment of women at workplace, is gender specific law. That is, the victim or the survivor could be only a woman, but the other party could be anybody. The survivor could be only a woman. It's a gender specific law. Now, people ask me this particular question, that why are these laws gender specific, as if men could not be harassed? And let me tell you, with due respect, I have all sympathies for the men who are being harassed. But whenever the law is being framed, it is framed for majority. And why is this gender specific? If you look at sexual harassment of women at workplace, 2013 law, we need to understand a little bit of context behind it. So, have you heard of this Bhabri Devi's rape case? There was this particular lady who was working with the government of Rajasthan, and her prime responsibility was to report to the government of Rajasthan any child marriage which was taking place over there. Now, this particular woman came across a child marriage of a 6-month-old girl from Gujar Samaj. She went to the government, she complained against it, the child marriage was stopped. But the people in whose family the marriage was to be conducted, they got so offended because Bhabri Devi belonged to a lower caste, they belonged to a higher caste. And how could a woman go against these men who were basically the pradhans of the society? And how dare she? One fine day, 4 men from this particular caste, from that particular family, came down to her village and they raped her before everybody. She screamed for help. Nobody came up. It's a sad story wherein she was bleeding, her ghagra was full of blood, and somehow she managed to go and file a complaint for herself. The matter went in the court. Sadly, the court acquitted the accused. And at the time of acquittal, the reasoning that was given was that I find it very difficult that how men of the higher caste, there were a couple of reasons, but two which are most disturbing, how men from higher caste could rape women from the lower caste, and number two, how could men of different age groups from the same family rape a woman, because they would feel very ashamed to, unzip themselves and rape the woman before each other. So it was really a disgusting analysis if you look at that particular judgment. Bhavri Devi's case obviously still is in the court. She's battling up for it till date. But what has been crucial is that Bhavri Devi emerged as a woman of strength for a lot of people. And it was something which was really crucial at that point of time. She was obviously awarded a lot of times. What was really crucial at that point of time is that Bhavri Devi became a torchbearer for this movement of sexual harassment of women at workplace. She went to her employer and she addressed the issue, but the employer obviously did not support her. The employer said that if you are raped, it's something which is not under my purview and it is your problem. And we all understand that had she not done her work in such a committed way, probably she wouldn't have been raped at all. So this is something which was really a matter of concern. There were people at that point of time, a lot of enlightened ones, who wrote a letter to the Supreme Court of the country. And they said that you need to intervene and you need to protect women. First of all, women in our country are not allowed to work. And then if they're allowed to work, if something like this happens and the employer does not owe a responsibility, then what do you do? The Supreme Court at that point of time came up with Vishaka guidelines. Can you just give me 1 minute, please? I'm getting a little distracted. I'll just make this call and get back.
Yes, please take your time.
I apologize. I was trying to call back that person. He did not attend, so I've just left him a message. Yeah. So I'm sorry. Where did I stop? Yeah. So the thing is that Vishaka guidelines came up in the year 1997 from the Supreme Court of the country. And Vishaka guidelines spoke about sexual harassment at workplace. Vishaka guidelines mention that there has to be a sexual harassment committee in every government organization. Okay. And it is compulsory. Most of the committee members have got to be women. It has to be presided by a lady who is at the senior level post. There has to be an NGO representation. 50% plus have to be women members. In case if the woman desires to file a complaint, she can approach the committee, file a complaint, and inquiry has to be conducted, and the inquiry has to be time bound in 90 days to maximum 120 days. Now, Vishaka guidelines came up, but look at the irony of the situation. The irony was that Bhavri Devi belonged to an unorganized sector, but Vishaka guidelines concerned the organized sector only. Vishaka guidelines concerned the government sector only. Okay. It forgot a lot of Bhavri Devis who basically come to our homes, who probably are roti makers, tiffin suppliers, so Vishaka guidelines forgot a lot of these women. Also, when it comes to private sectors, at that point of time, if you remember, 1992 was the year of liberalization and globalization, wherein the Indian markets were open and a lot of multinational companies came down to India. These MNCs had their own bylaws. So for them, sexual harassment was gender neutral. Okay. But when it came down to India specifically, the law was gender specific when it came down to government sectors. But private had their own this thing. Okay. In 2002, also, there was a rape case that did happen, in one of the educational institutions in Bombay. So the universities also came up with their own guidelines. This was something which was happening. There was a lot of pressure on the government to have a law. The Supreme Court mentioned that these are the guidelines. They will operate as law till the law comes in. And there was this particular direction given to the legislature to enact the law as soon as possible. The law was being discussed in the parliament from 2009. There were several bills of sexual harassment at workplace, but they were just at the discussion stage. Subsequently, what happened is that the law was enacted and there were a lot of things that came up rampantly in sexual violence arena. There was this particular rape case, Nirbhaya's rape case, which happened in the fag end of 2012. There was this particular girl who was raped in Delhi by 4 to 5 men, brutally injured. Her vagina, her intestine, everything was torn up. There were rods inserted inside. And the gang rape shook the conscience of this particular country. Obviously, there is a lot of political drama also behind it because everything has a political interest. But then I'm not going to discuss that. But what happened at that particular point of time is that there were sweeping things in the criminal law amendment. A lot of things were amended in the criminal law, which we will look at it subsequently. But also during that time, the Sexual Harassment Act 2013 came up in April, which said that, this is the law particularly for women. And if you look at the videos of that point of time, which took place in 2012, you can see people with candle march sitting on the roadside, taking out protests, saying, protect our women, there are no sufficient laws. And there were male folks also to say, protect our women, there are no sufficient laws. And if you look at it, I did not ask for a gender neutral law. It was you who asked for gender specific law, So it came out from the masses that protect our women. Also, the fact is that if you look at Constitution Article 15.3, the government has the authority to make law in favor of weaker sections of the society, which is women, children, senior citizens, etc. And that is how this law came up, to protect the weaker sections of the society. And this is how the history of this goes, that why is it gender specific, So sexual harassment of women at workplace is gender specific, 2013. If you look at this law, a lot of it resembles the Vishaka guidelines. Okay. The Sexual Harassment Committee was called as the Internal Complaints Committee. Now it is called as the Internal Committee. And there were certain positive, good changes also. So the sexual harassment law in Vishaka guidelines was only confined to the public sector. Now it extended to the private sector. The workplace definition under the sexual harassment law says that workplace is any place wherever there are more than 10 employees. You have to have a sexual harassment committee, that is internal committee. Okay. And if there are less than 10 employees, and if there is a woman who is being harassed, she can go to the local committee, which is at the district level. So now the unorganized sector ka women were also being taken care of under this particular law. So if there are more than 10 people at a workplace, the committee has to be there. So if you just looked around in Bombay, wherever there are more than 10 people, there has to be a committee. So your shops, your shopping malls, your cinema halls, your sports stadium, your colleges, your school, the offices which are around, okay? The Fab Indias, the restaurants, wherever you go for shopping, the Zaras, wherever there are more than 10 people, you have to have an internal committee. The law mandates that the employer has to put up the details of internal committee in the conspicuous part of the premises so that who are the members, so that God forbid if I'm being sexually violated, I know that I have to go and address my concerns in this particular forum and I can file a complaint. So ideally the malls, the schools, the colleges, everywhere you have to have it in the conspicuous part of the premises that this is the internal committee. If you are being sexually harassed, these are the people you need to contact. These are the people you need to mail. But sadly, a lot of time the employers are not doing their duties. Probably they are not even aware about it. Probably there is not even an awareness created around it. Okay. But I remember there was this particular girl who came in from a huge telecom subscriber, like, a service provider. Huge. Okay. Like that service provider is one of the main service providers in the country. And she said that she was sexually harassed in her organization with one of the colleagues. And I asked her, isn't there a sexual harassment committee or an internal committee in your organization? She said, no. I said, weren't there any awareness programs? She said, no. I said, nothing put up in the conspicuous part of the premises? She said, no. I said, this is violation of your rights. The employer owes you a duty to have the committee and publicize that particular committee. And if the employer doesn't do that, there could be a fine of 50,000 rupees being imposed on the employer. If he does it again, it could be 1 lakh of rupees, and does it again, then tumhara license suspend ho sakta hai. And we send a notice to that particular organization. It's a huge organization. That organization was out of its wits because all their concentration at that point of time was only about generating income or probably having certain laws at place, but not sexual harassment of women at workplace. And we were like that you have to assist this particular woman, you have to have your committee at place. And in case if it is not there, this is the violation that you have conducted. And then the employer took serious note of it and started working towards it. But also, what I want you to know is that wherever you go, so for example, let's say you remember Smriti Irani's case. She went to Fab India, she was in the changing room, and she realized there was a camera over there. And obviously, she filed an FIR because it comes under the police purview also. But at the same time, it was sexual harassment at workplace because who installed the camera? Why was the camera installed in the changing room? I remember when I was young and there was McDonald's at Thane, and at one point of time there was this news that the girl went into the washroom over there, and there was a camera which was put by one of the people out there, one of the employees, and then strict action was taken. And then there were a lot of news at that point of time when we were young, when the mall cultures came up, wherein the girls would go to the changing room and then you would have peeping toms. So law has changed itself and obviously adapted to the changing circumstances. So what I want to tell you is that if you're being harassed in this kind of scenario, you have a right to go and file a complaint immediately at the organization at that point of time. Obviously, simultaneously, you can approach the police, but this is also an option that you have. And ideally, the Fab India, the Zara, the H&M owe a responsibility to put those names in the conspicuous part of the premises, which sadly a lot of them don't do. And this is a matter of concern. And ideally, notices should be sent to them as to why are they not doing, though they have the committees. So I remember recently last year, I was at the mall and I had a fight with one particular man who was an employee of this particular place. And he abused me. I said, "You're not supposed to abuse me. You know, this is sexual harassment that you're doing. You're using sexually connotated words towards me." And I was like, "Where is your sexual harassment committee?" He was like, "Zapped. He didn't know about it." Then I called the mall authorities by just dialing the number. And the mall authorities came and I said that this is sexual harassment. And why is it that there is no committee put up? They said that they have a committee at the mall. And I said, "File my complaint and call the police." I called the police. So what I want to tell you is that once you are aware about your rights, the more people were also like, "Oh, she's aware about it." Okay. So you have to be very clear that this is what you have to do. And if it is not done, I have the right to take an action. So sexual harassment of women at workplace, there has to be a committee wherever there are more than 10 people. Wherever there are less than 10 people, so for example, a maid coming to my house, Shiny Ahuja's rape case is a classic example where he raped his maid. Where does she go? She goes to the police, but along with that, she can also approach the local committee for her stuff. Okay. So wherever there are more than 10 people working in the organization, sexual harassment committee or internal committee is a must. Wherever there are less than 10 people, then you have to approach the local committee, which is at the district level. Okay. Now, the committee also, as I told you, 50% is zyada, they have to be women. They should be aware about what the law is. It has to be presided by a senior level woman management के ऊपर जो employee है, वो. Also, the committee should have a third party representation in the form of a woman from an NGO or probably somebody who has legal or social knowledge. Okay. I remember there was this particular organization where we sent a notice of sexual harassment of this particular girl who was violated. And the organization had a committee. And committee where they had an NGO person, and the NGO person was animal rights activist. And we were like, "You're not working as per the compliances. You're not supposed to be having an animal rights activist for this. So what I want to say is that a lot of people are not aware, and that is becoming a problem. So in case if you're being violated, you have to write your complaint in writing to the committee. In case if somebody can't write, any other person on that person's behalf can write. You can be a relative, you can be a friend, you could be a colleague, you could be anybody. Okay. Once you give it in writing, the other person has to be served with that paper. Okay. A timeline has to be adhered to. Thereafterwards, when the person, so within a week, the notice has to be sent to the other person. The person gets 10 days to reply, but whatever the reply is will be supplied to you. You will be called for an inquiry. If there has to be an assurance that, there is no confrontation, because there is a possibility you won't be able to stand before that person. There could also be power dynamics. So we can't cross-examine you, or there shouldn't be a face-to-face thing. I'll give you an example. I remember I was sitting in a sexual harassment inquiry a couple of years back. In 2007, I was very young at that particular point of time. And it was a huge government organization. And at that point of time, there was this particular woman who came over there and she said that this particular man, at 5 o'clock in the evening, while we all were leaving, this man who is aged 35 and I'm aged 50, he kissed me. This was a complaint. Now, the committee women were so biased. They were like, how could a man who is young kiss a woman who is old and ugly like you? Just look at the bias. Okay. The committee should have been quashed at that point of time. And I was young and there were 2 other male members and they were like, listen, it has got nothing to do with age. It has got nothing to do with looks. If she's saying she's being kissed, she's being kissed. As simple as that. Why are you not believing her? Then they came up with another misconception that, oh, if you were kissed, you must have enjoyed it. Otherwise, you would have slapped him. And had I been at your place, I would have probably slapped him. And we were like, how could you make that particular allegation? every woman responds in a similar situation in different ways. So, for example, if there is somebody who's abused me, I would probably fight back. But my mother is somebody who would probably go behind the doors and shut the door and save herself. So, when mother and daughter could be so different, how could you expect two women who are so different to be responding to a situation in a particular way? So, look at the biases that came up at that point of time. I went outside for some time. The presiding officer went outside for some time. The men were also just outside for 5 minutes, to take a water break. These committee members called the woman, called the man, and they asked the man to cross-examine her. They asked the woman to cross-examine him. The woman started crying because the man was so attacking in nature, and she just started crying. And then when we came back, we are looking at this, and the committee members are like, oh, see, look at her, she's crying. Probably because, she's lying, so she doesn't have anything to say, and this is what it is. So the man is not a liar, he's the one who's speaking it all the truth. And we were outraged. We were like, we are planning to file a complaint that how could you go ahead with these kind of proceedings? And then afterwards, the committee was obviously terminated for being biased. But what I want to tell you is that look at the biases that take place when a woman complains, So what I want to tell you is that there has to be no cross confrontation. Okay. Cross confrontation or cross examination is not even allowed in rape cases. Cross examination is allowed, but you can't be cross examined by the person who raped you. You will be cross examined by his lawyer, or you will be asked questions put forth in a dignified way by the judge. Imagine a person who has raped you, and that person cross examines you in the court. First of all, you will be scared. You won't be able to speak. There would be probably power dynamics. There would be, you will be getting back into that memory zone wherein you were raped. It would be so inhuman that the person has to cross examine you. But he has a right to put forth the questions because it is a matter of right of his defenses also. So, in such cases, questions have to be asked through the lawyer or through the legal representative, but they have to be asked. They can't be not asked, but they can't be cross examinations by the person who is abused you. So, this is one of your rights as women, as men that you need to remember. That as a woman, you have a right to file complaint, not being judged. If you feel the committee is being biased, you can say that you are being biased. The committee members should be neutral. They shouldn't know you. They shouldn't know him. Okay. If anybody knows the other side, obviously they have to be chucked off. The entire inquiry has to be done in a confidential way, not that everybody has to be going out. You can put forth your witnesses. You can put forth your evidence. Within 90 days to 120 days maximum, it has to be, done with. Whatever questions are being asked to him will be given to you. Whatever being asked to you will be given to him. You have a right to cross-question each other, but not directly, okay, in a dignified way through the committee. And whatever is in writing would be supplied to you. The committee would be giving the recommendation to the employer, and the employer has to execute the recommendation in 60 days' time. The recommendation could be that, that person will not be promoted or would be suspended, or probably a warning, or probably a fine, or probably a community service, that kind of a thing. Okay. In the intervening, while the committee takes 90 to 120 days, you have certain interim rights. That is, in case if you need a medical representation, you need counseling, or probably you need to, file a police complaint against that person, or probably you need a paid leave, or that person should not be, if he's your supervisor, he should not be taking up your work, or probably there would be a temporary transfer of his so that to avoid confrontation at the workplace. So you have all these rights as a survivor of sexual harassment at workplace. And if the company helps you out, they are supposed to help you out, your school, your college, your organization, to file a complaint against that person. All the assistance has to be done free of cost. So they will help you file an FIR, they will help you approach the police, they will help you with the court system, etc., etc. Okay. So this is your right in a nutshell under the Sexual Harassment Act 2013. Okay. And if they do not do any of their duties, fine could be imposed against them. You can take them to the court of law also. Okay. And side by side, you can go to the police to file any complaint that you so desire. Okay. Now, what are the kinds of complaints of sexual violence which could be filed, or what are the categories of these complaints which could be filed? Do you all need a break of 5 minutes? Is it getting too much?
Ma'am, if you take some questions in case students have.
Okay. Can we open ourselves for questions?
Ma'am, I have one question. As many a times, these procedures take a lot of time. So, is that the time factor that a woman always feels not to approach to the police and to the law? Is because it is her work at her stake, it is her dignity at her stake. So, are those the reasons? Because if there would have been some instant justice, the case gets started and she gets the proof of her cleanliness or her clean chit immediately, which doesn't happen.
Yeah, I feel it could be multiple factors, not just the time factor. Okay. Multiple factors: the society being stigmatizing her, no support system, the prospects of getting remarried, prospects of getting married, prospect of, probably being ostracized at the job, especially when you are going against the power dynamics. So let's say if I file a complaint against the watchman of my office, it's simple. But if I have to file it against the top-notch boss of my organization, it's not simple. Okay. And especially when it is top-notch boss, the boss, ideally the committee can't take a complaint that has to go to a local committee, because obviously the committee is formed by the top-notch person, so they would be biased. So it has to go to the local committee. But along with the time factor, there are a lot of other factors also. Also, Suvarna, if you ask me that there has to be instant justice, as a human rights propagator, I would say it can't be instant, because just like the woman has a right to put down her case, the man also has a right to a due representation. What if, there is something else beyond this? Are you getting me? So he also has a right to put forth his innocence. And in case if it is instant, you are taking away that particular thing. Okay. I also have a lot of concern wherein, yeah, of course, at times the cases are lingered for years together, wherein we know who the accused are, wherein the case is so clear. I also have a lot of concern wherein there is a lot of class, caste bias in these kinds of cases. So whenever the accused is from a lower hierarchy, everybody is pouncing on that accused, be it the conductor be it the boys in that case, Nirbhaya's rape case. Okay. But when the accused belongs to a particular class, I'm like Asaram Bapu kind of a thing. We all know what he's done, but the case lingers for years together, So for me, I feel that instant justice has to be a sound also, wherein we are not attacking a particular class, but it has to be something which has to be so plain. That's the reason why a lot of people are against capital punishment, because if you look at it, people from a particular class are being given capital punishment rather than the justice being, done across the classes. And that is my concern. So I have to look at it from both the sides. Yes, delay does count, okay, but it shouldn't be at the cost of justice, is what I feel. It does matter.
Right.
I do.
Rightly said. Yeah. There are some cases which are moved to fast track.
Yes.
So what
I'll
are
be
those?
coming to that. Yeah, I'll be
Okay,
coming to that. Just give me some time. I'll just
Sure.
cover sexual harassment and then I'll cover rape and POCSO also.
Sure.
So,
Students, are there any more questions? Anyone wants to ask?
there is somebody who has asked me in a personal chat that is abusing also sexual harassment. Yes, in case if there is a sexual connotation, you're being abused in a particular way, it is sexual harassment as well. It is how you perceive it. So let's say, for example, somebody just gives you an abuse, but as a woman, your perception also matters than the intent of the harasser. Okay. And we women have this gut feeling and this intuitive feeling. So let's say you would be okay to hugging 10 people, but you are not okay to shaking your hands with that person, तो बाबा कुछ तो गड़बड़ है, मैं कंफर्टेबल नहीं हूँ, उसकी नजर अच्छी नहीं है. एंड काफी बार आपको लड़के भी बोलेंगे यार उसकी नजर अच्छी नहीं है, जरा बच के रहना, उस आदमी से. So it's your perception that matters. So let's say there is a guy who compliments that, wow, you're wearing a wonderful perfume. I'll be like, okay, very happy. Okay. But there might be a guy who would be complimenting me that, okay, you're wearing a wonderful perfume, but I'm not okay with his compliment. I feel it's said with some intention. You know, you are able to figure out that intention. Okay. So over here, I would also like to mention that your perception prevails over the intention. I would like to give you two more examples over here, 2 to 3 more examples over here to clarify my stand. There was this particular doctor, and he was a crazy, crazy doctor. We had a case of sexual harassment against him, government organization, and everybody was scared of him. He would just be abusive and crazily like, अगर किसी का 1 minute भी late हो गया ना तो बजा देता था. One fine day, there was a nurse who came to him. She was a new joinee, and everybody, she was scared, and so was she. She was having a tray in her hand with all the injections and syringes. The doctor was like, "You're 1 minute late. How dare you?" And that tray fell down from her hand. The doctor went crazy. He abused her, and he literally tore her shirt, which she was wearing. Her bra was visible. And there was a case of sexual harassment. The union pounced on him. It was a government hospital. The union pounced on him, and there was a case of sexual harassment. That this is now too much. We were sitting for the inquiry. We are asking this particular woman. She's like, yes, he did that, you know, but he did not have an intention to sexually abuse me. We were like, look at that lady. Like, I really appreciate her. She was like, he did not have an intention. And we were like, yeah, we agree maybe with you. And everybody was like that he's mad, he does it with everybody, he abuses everybody. But we were like, okay, Balle, it was not his intention, but we ourselves are offended. We appreciate your perception of it. We appreciate the way you're living it, but this is gross. Nobody has a right to do this. This is clear-cut case of molestation. Today he's doing it with you. Tomorrow he will do it with somebody else. We just suspended him that this is not done. You know, this is one example. Now, I'll give you another example of this. This is how it happens. Okay, this is how sexual harassment cases happen out of your innocence, out of boys' innocence also. I'll give you 3 such examples. One example was this particular boy. I was delivering a lecture in MBA class, and he said, "Madam, you know what? These girls misuse the law of sexual harassment." I said, "What happened?" He said, "I'm a victim of it, of this misuse." I said, "What happened?" He's like, "I just wrote some hanky-panky message on the WhatsApp group, और वो time पे WhatsApp नया आया था, okay? और मैंने बस डाल दिया एक non-veg joke. So there is a girl who's taking an offense." I said, "Of course she will take an offense, yeah. You know your boundaries, you know your limits. You should know where you're supposed to crack the joke. And if somebody is taking an offense, obviously it's a clear-cut case." So what I want to tell boys also over here, which we always tell girls, know your boundaries, but I'm telling the boys that kindly know your boundaries. Kindly know that you can't cross the line, and when it's a yes, it's a yes, it's a no, it's a no. Kindly understand that, you know. And the way you cross your boundaries, it really affects. So, for example, when I was in KC College, I belong to a very conservative Muslim-dominated society, okay, Muslim family, male-dominated society. So, for us, seeking education for girls was also something big. And I, all throughout, was in a convent school. Now, from convent, I came to KC, which was co-education. So, and I was put in my head that, you know, boys are bad. You should be very clear with boys. You should not talk with boys. And it was in my head for years together because it came in from my father. Okay. So, even if a boy who would come nicely in the college to talk to me and shake hands, I would be like, "Namaste." Okay. And KC college culture was such कि hug chalta hai, handsome stud boys, you know, all those kind of things. And I was like, "Namaste." You know, I would just be away from the boys because that is how I was socialized. Now, you imagine if there would be a boy at that point of time who would come and hug me. His intention would not be that, but my perception would be he sexually harassed me because I was brought up in that way. So that innocent boy would probably implicate it for sexual harassment, which wouldn't have been his intention, but my perception was such. So what I want to tell boys over here, that please respect cultures. You know, you have to respect the cultural boundaries. I remember there was this particular colleague of mine who was in America, and I was delivering a sexual harassment lecture. And she said, "Nausheen, I was in America for 6 months, and वहाँ पे racism का बहुत issue होता है. मेरे मोबाइल में खाली एक काले बंदर का फोटो था. उस दिन फोन बजा, मेरे बाजू में एक अफ्रीकी बैठा था. He said, ये काले बंदर का फोटो तूने मेरे को चिल्लाने के लिए लगाया, you are a racist. She's like, oh God, I did not even mean anything. I just love monkeys. I love gorillas. मेरे को क्या सोची कि मैंने उस दिन वो photograph डाली and this man pounced at me. So look at the cultural differences. Poor Indian, yeah, she was stuck up over there for a racism thing. And she was like the cultural, it's very important when we talk about things to also talk about cultural inclusions and dynamics, that your culture and my culture is different. Please respect. When you cross that boundaries, even unintentionally, you're asking for a lot of troubles for yourself, And this is what my message to boys would go, that you have to maintain your boundaries. A joke with one girl might not be okay with a joke with another girl, So it's also very important that we send this as a message to our boys. I go to this particular salon quite often, and it's a unisex salon. And this guy is a young guy in his 20s, and he started a salon by himself, and he's doing well. So he acts like a stud. Now, obviously, I'm at the age of 40, so he wouldn't act like a stud before me, but I see him, acting like a stud before all these girls, customers who come. Now, he's a nut that he's crossing his boundaries because he's the employer. He's the organization owner. And you have to have your boundaries. Recently, he touched a girl inappropriately. She just filed a case. Now his salon is shut, So what I want to tell you is that you have to maintain your boundaries, particularly when you belong to a position of power. Then, you are all the more into that particular thing that you have to maintain. Okay. So this is one of the most important aspects or messages that I would like to give people. There are a lot of questions coming in my private chat. Oh my God, why are you sending me all private messages only? I'm finding it difficult to read. Ma'am, is approaching internal committee practical? Does it work in real life? Yes, it is practical. It works in real life. Your college also has an internal committee. It is given by the university guidelines, and your professors, Professor Aishna, I would request her to talk a little more after some time about that committee, as to who are the members and how does it go. Okay, it works in practical life. Okay. There is another question that, ma'am, some of them are afraid for raising the voice against wrong things. Example, in Kolkata rape case, the girl raised a voice against principal's wrong action, so she got raped. Ma'am, what to do in such situations? See, darling, you have to raise voice. But also, in case if you raise voice, you need to understand how you strategize to rape voice, especially when you are fighting against position of power. So you have to have it in the form of, collecting people, because that is what we did in our college when we were concerned, collecting people and then filing complaints. Okay. So you have to be strategic as well. Okay. You can't afford to use your brains. There is another question. Do men have a right to be warned first that a certain action is harassment before it becomes a complaint? No, it becomes a complaint. But then ideally, there have to be awareness sessions so that men know that, this is what not is to be done. Okay. Also, it takes me to one of the things that I forgot, that whenever a sexual harassment complaint is being filed, on the first day, the committee will ask the woman, what does she want? Okay, does she want to proceed with the inquiry, or is she looking for a settlement? Settlement matlab monetary settlement nahi ki paisa le de ke khatam karo. Okay, let's say if the man is saying, I'm apologizing, it was a mistake, I wouldn't repeat it again, it was a bona fide thing, I did not mean it at all. And if he is ready to apologize, then so the case will be settled and it will be closed. Okay, with a strict warning to him that you don't do it again. But if he does it again, then obviously the case will be opened and there is no looking back. Okay, but this is also an option wherein the settlement is being asked, and if no settlement, then it proceeds for inquiry. Okay. If you had the power to create one law that benefits women, what would it be? I'll think about it. Okay, thank you, ma'am, for examples. It's clearly what exactly sexual harassment. Okay, I will come back to your question. What law would it be? One law? Please let me think about it, and I'll gradually answer your question towards the end of the session. Okay. So this is what sexual harassment at workplace is. I want to give you some more incidents of sexual harassment which the law identifies after the Criminal Law Amendment Act 20 12. Okay. So when Nirbhaya rape case happened, there were a lot of amendments to the law, and particularly the criminal law amendment, wherein a lot of changes were brought up in the rape scenario. Okay. Uh, I want to give you a little bit of context about the rape laws also, and then come down to this. Okay. So, should I just proceed, or you all want to have a break of 1 minute? Let me know.
Ma'am, if you need break, please tell us.
No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm just worried about you all because it is too much of information and very less time. That's my worry.
Yeah, so 5 minutes quick break, if it's okay with you.
Or should we take 1 minute now, and then when I finish sexual harassment,
Sure.
sexual ka thing chunk, and when we go to domestic violence, then we take 5 minutes break. So
Fine.
yeah. So we'll take
Okay.
1 minute break now. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi. So we'll start. Um. So there is this catalyst of rape movement, Mathura rape case. It was early in the year or mid in the year 1970s, wherein there was this particular young girl who was working at an employer's place, and she happened to elope with the employer's son. Oh, by the way, there are other questions also. I will cover the other questions gradually once I finish the sexual harassment topic. Okay. So the thing is that she was working, and she was a young minor girl, and she was barely 16 years of age, and she eloped with the employer's son. She was a tribal girl. Um, an FIR was filed. The police people got hold of the girl and they got her to the police station. The entire crowd was standing outside the police station after this incident happened. Now, what happened is that the constables in the police station at that point of time, there were two constables, they raped this particular girl. And at that point of time, the girl did not scream, she did not resist, she was too scared, she was frozen, she wasn't able to, confront them. And obviously, the constable at the gunpoint raping you, how would you even, protest? But when she came out and she told the people that she was raped, they got so offended, the community, that they broke down the police station and an FIR was filed against the constables. The matter went on in the court. It did take some time. The trial court convicted the accused, but the High Court acquitted. And one of the reasons that was given for acquittal was that this particular girl was a woman of easy virtue. She was used to having sex because she eloped with the employer's son, so she was used to this. Two is that there were no injury marks on her body. She did not scream, she did not protest, like how the screaming and protest takes place जब rape case हिंदी पिक्चरों में होता है तो बचाओ बचाओ नहीं बोले. And this was something which literally affected the conscience of people at that point of time, because what we understand is that, let's say there is a situation, we can't be Hindi filmy that we envisage the situation like a Hindi movie wherein जब औरत का रेप हो रहा है वो बचाओ बचाओ चिल्लाती है, क्योंकि कुछ इंसिडेंट्स ऐसे होते हैं ना कि आपके मुंह से आवाज नहीं निकलेगी, your body will freeze, you know, that is also a response that your body gives you. You freeze up. I don't know if you all have been in a situation like this, but I have been in a situation like this wherein I was again in my SYBA. I don't know that SYBA was very prime year of my life and a lot of things happened. And I remember I was studying, it was my exam, and I could hear a woman outside screaming. And when I opened the door, and I was alone, my brother came back from the gym, he's 3 years younger to me, and he was bathing. My mother was out for shopping, my dad was at work. And when I opened the door, I see this woman wherein 2 men are holding her as if they're about to rape her. And I was like shit scared. And as a feminist, you know, when I talk so passionately that I will, you know, probably thrash up a man. I did go out. For 2 minutes, I was frozen, you know. I did go out. Somehow I gathered courage after 2 minutes. I tried to beat up those men with my tiny hands, you know, and I tried to help that woman, but then I realized, forget it, they will leave her and they will catch hold of me, and I have a brother of mine and we both are alone. So I came inside the house, I shut the door, I tried screaming, bachao, bachao, but ye burn na nikal nahi raha tha, gale se atak gaya tha. Like, you know, I was so scared, I was shivering with fear. And then I called a police station because I knew that my father told me you have to dial 100. And that was the first time I called police station and I said, Suniye, मैं इधर इधर रहती हूँ, please किसी को भेजिए, यहाँ पे ऐसे ऐसे हो रहा है. And the lady understood that I was a child and I was scared. And she said, which is your local police station? I told her this is the local police station, and she sent the cops in 15 minutes. So usually when you call the police station, they ask you which is your local police station, because they are a central number. They will send the van from that particular police station, you know. And the police came in and then they took them, and it seems there was some love triangle going on. But oh my God, the headache that I had that day, it was crazy. Like, I'll talk to you in details later on when we have a lot of time to talk, but it was a crazy day that I had. And for me, what I realized is that this episode happened to me, and वो बचाओ करके burn ही निकलता है, आप freeze हो जाते हो, you know. हिंदी पिक्चरों जैसा बचाओ बचाओ आप नहीं बोल पाओगे, काफी बार ऐसा होगा आपके साथ, you know. And then blaming the woman that there are no injury marks. Yeah, you are in the police station with 2 male constables. They are huge. Their hands are such, if they thrash you, you would be out there with the gun point, with a man of power who is raping you. Obviously, you would be frozen and you will give in. This passive submission cannot be called as consent, you know. And that was a huge uproar that took place at that point of time. And there were certain significant changes which also came up in the 1980s, wherein past sexual history could not be brought into the court. You might be sleeping with 10 men, you might be a prostitute, but it doesn't mean that this man has a right to rape you as something so important, okay? And this passive submission cannot be consent, especially when there are power dynamics involved, because you don't know how you're supposed to respond. And in Hindi pictures, they show that the woman is struggling, she's beating, she's slapping. At times, you don't know how to react. And this is the stark reality. So you can imagine how that those judges were influenced by the Hindi cinema, that they had the courage to make these statements. Okay. So this is one thing, but then gradually with the passage of law, obviously there were a lot of changes in the rape law. Sparse sexual history could not be discussed. You had, this particular thing about passive submission is not consent. Also, power dynamics which are involved. Gradually, after the Nirbhaya's rape case, there were sweeping amendments in the criminal law system. Obviously, the punishments were increased. Rape was just not peno-vaginal. So, pehle it was peno-vaginal. But there afterwards in Nirbhaya, what we realized, and Nirbhaya died not because of the rape, but because of the injuries that were caused to her during the rape. There were insertion of rods into her private organs. Okay. So obviously the definition was extended of rape, wherein you are touching or inserting, anything, not only a penis, but anything into the woman or her private parts, that would be counted as rape. So the definition got broadened to that extent. All right. Also, the fact that, in case if you are raping a pregnant woman, or if you're raping a woman in custody, or if you're in a position of power, maybe you are a supervisor, or probably somebody from the management, or from the police, or from the military, then the rape punishment would be higher. If you're raping a pregnant woman, or in case if there is a gang rape, or in case if there is a rape of communal violence, so obviously those punishments would be much more as compared to, the rape that takes place in a scenario like this. Then also the fact that it's just not rape, there are also other kind of sexual violences which were identified. They were there existing, but in a broad terminology. Now they were broken down further. So for example, voyeurism, for example, stalking. In simple words, let's say I am being captured by somebody while I'm not supposed to be captured. Okay, so let's say my partner captures me during our intimate moments, and that is, he's capturing me during my intimate moments, or probably I am changing in a changing room and I'm being captured at that point of time. So that is something which can't be done, and that is an instance of sexual violence too. Or probably there is a possibility that this particular person comes before me and displays his private organs all of a sudden, this man. So obviously that is also sexual violence. Also stalking. So somebody is stalking me physically. तो हमारे ज़माने में लड़के लोग पीछे पीछे आते थे, तो वो complain होता था. But now with the things becoming so electronic, so you have somebody stalking you on Facebook, वो ping करते हैं ना Facebook पे, or somebody stalking you, by calling you on Facebook, or calling you on WhatsApp calls, or making video calls to you, etc., etc., or making phone calls to you. I remember in 2012 when there was a criminal law amendment that took place, I was the first person to file a case of electronic stalking. And the police also did not understand at that point of time. So I was sitting in the office, I was busy in my work, and all of a sudden I get a call at 5 o'clock from this man. And it was 2014 or 2013 something. And I'm like, listen, stop calling me. Now you're calling me 10 times. I'm not liking it. I was so pissed off, I started abusing. He started abusing. And I was like, now I'll go to the police station. So 6 o'clock, I went to the police station to file a complaint. The police wala picked up the phone, and there were no true callers at that point of time. He traced the man and he said, Madam, UP se call aa raha hai aur hum log dekhte hain. And the police wala picked up the phone and he abused that man left, right, and center. And that man got scared because जब पुलिस वाला abuse करता है ना, तो लगता है कि पुलिस वाला abuse किया. I don't know if you all have heard it or not, but he got scared. And then I was telling the police that, okay, fine, but file my FIR. And they were like, what FIR? I said, it is stalking. He is electronically stalking me. He made 15 calls to me despite me telling him no. And they were like, we are not going to file your FIR. I said, yeah, but as per the Criminal Law Amendment Act 354, you have to take it up. And they were like, no, we are not going to take it. I went to the DCP. I called up the DCP. The DCP entertained me. I went as a regular woman, not as a lawyer. But then they finally took my FIR. And the next day when I went to the court के अंदर भी सब बातें कर रहे थे कि यार पुलिस को तुमने बहुत तंग किया. मैं बोली मैंने तंग नहीं किया. I was just using my rights. So that was first case of mine wherein stalking electronically was filed. So what I want to tell you is that whether you are at a public place and somebody has touched you inappropriately, or somebody, we face it so often, somebody touching, somebody brushing aside, somebody touching our breast, somebody our private parts, and at times you're not even able to figure it out. You turn behind and the person is gone. Okay. I remember when I was of your age and somebody used to do it to me, I would just pick up my slipper. अगर कोई हाथ में आता था तो उसको पकड़ के मारती थी. Public भी तंग होके उसको मारती थी, that was one of the response which I took when I felt that I could get support of people around me. Okay, but if I would be alone, I would rather not take these kinds of risks. I remember once we were at BT station along with 5 female friends of mine, college ke andar hi. And there was this man who was a drunkard. He just abused me and I abused him back. And then he abused me more. And I thought I will look at my friends for support. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, some platform number 7, I think. And I turned around, all my friends ran away. So what I realized, I look at this man and he was huge. I was like, forget it, I can't fight with him. I rather run away, and I couldn't find a constable at that point of time at VT station. But what I want to tell you is that your fight or your flight response has to be accordingly. Not that every time you have to fight, at times you have to flee also. Okay. And not that every time you have to flee, you have to fight also. Okay. So this becomes very important. What response do you take? You have to be very particular as to what kind of support you could get rather than calling troubles unnecessarily for yourself. I think this is one of the advice that I would like to give women over here. Anyways, now we have the BNS, Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita, which is almost the replica of IPC with certain changes in the law. The sections have been suffered, certain places where, the punishments have increased, but almost the same. Okay, but maybe we can cover it a little in details when we are doing a specific session. Today we are doing a general, so I'm just touching upon it. Okay. Then we also have something as the POCSO law, okay, Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act. So a lot of cases of child sexual abuse were coming up, and many a times they are done by people who are known to these children. Could be the father, could be the grandfather, could be the uncle, could be anybody, could be somebody from the school. I remember the first case of child sexual abuse. POCSO came up in 2012, but the first case of child sexual abuse that came to us was in 2010. And there was a small girl of 4 years of age, and she came back from her school and she was bleeding from her vagina. And her mother watched her. She was like, what happened? And she said, watchman uncle ne mere mein keeda dala. Now she didn't even know that that was his penis, And the mother was shocked. And when the mother took her to the doctors said that she was raped. And then the mother had a big struggle to file an FIR. And when the FIR was filed, the school was reluctant to cooperate. And they hired a big lawyer to represent that particular man. Eventually, they lost the case because the girl went in with a lot of support. This was from the past organization that I was working with. But obviously, the law also understood that children need to be protected, whether males or females, So you have the POCSO Act, which identifies anybody who's below the age of 18, and if it's being violated, then obviously the punishment is far more severe. And it comes under the POCSO law. And the consent of the minor over here is not relevant. Okay, so a lot of times, let's say you're 16 years of age, and this is another note of caution that I would like to give you, because you all are at that particular age, which is more vulnerable. So let's say you're 16 years of age and you are indulging with a guy who's, let's say, an adult, and probably you fall in love with that guy, though it is consensual, but your consent is not of a significance. Sadly. The guy could be tried under the POCSO law. Okay, so for the guys also, I would like to tell you that please be very cautious when you're indulging with somebody, because you don't know what you're inviting for yourself. Okay. Yes, this particular law is also misused in the sense that we see a lot of parents getting their minors get married. Okay. And then the POCSO law is not attracted. But when the same girl has her consent and she wants to, probably indulge into somebody, then the POCSO law is used. So there has been a lot of debate also with regards to POCSO, wherein consensual sex is being concerned after a particular age, because we see a lot of young people being entangled into the litigation process unnecessarily. And this is something which we should probably have a separate session on to discuss, that what should you keep in your mind, with regards to POCSO. So POCSO means sexual offense of any kind of nature wherein you are touching the person, the child, it's not necessarily an intercourse, it's not necessarily an insertion into the private organ, but it could be kissing, licking, hugging, touching inappropriately any part of the body. Okay, and that does come under the POCSO law. So we've got to be very careful as to what we are, getting into, whether in the form of love affairs or something, so that we don't invite anything as such for ourselves. Showing pornography to the child or asking the child to do something like that. Also, if you are aware about it, about a POCSO case, so let's say there is somebody, who's indulged into sex in your college and you are aware about it, and if you don't report about it when the person is minor, then you also call an imprisonment for yourself. So it's a very dangerous law in that particular sense as far as consensual sexual relationships are concerned. But then you can't keep consent can't be irrelevant, because many a times there is a possibility that, let's say, a child is actually abused by an adult, and then if you say consent, तो फिर वो problem बन जाएगा, okay? And many a times children are very scared to speak, okay? So this is another aspect of POCSO which we should be talking about, as to how this law looks at children who are in a very vulnerable state, but also the fact that how do we address the issue of consensual sexual relationships? And mandatory reporting, wherein you would feel that whether you should report or not, because it can't be imposed, because there is a possibility at times the girl has indulged with her consent and you have seen it as a professor, and now you are in a dilemma to report it or not to report it. And this is also another sense of debate, which is POCSO ka thing, with regards to consensual sex, and the other is on mandatory reporting. Okay, so we'll discuss it in details probably when we are at peace to discuss it as much as possible. Yeah. I leave the crowd open for question answers, and then we will break for 5 minutes, and then I'll start with domestic violence. We'll take
Students' questions, or maybe are they typing in chat box?
No, I can't see further questions in chat box.
You all can unmute. Anyone can unmute and speak.
Yes. So we'll take 5 minutes break and we'll get back.
Yes, ma'am. Sure. Thank you so much.
I am back. Okay, there are a lot of questions in the private chat. There are a lot of questions. Should I answer these questions now, or can we do it towards the end while we finish the entire session?
As you prefer, ma'am. Not a
Yeah,
problem.
we'll continue with the session, and then afterwards,
Sure.
I'll answer all of them together. Okay, so I'll come back
Perfect.
with the answers. Yeah, there are a lot
Perfect.
of private messages. Okay. Thank you. So, okay, there are still questions coming up. I'll be looking at the questions. Please keep typing. Please keep typing. There are a lot of questions still coming up. I'll be addressing them. Okay. We look at Domestic Violence Act. So, domestic violence protection. The title is Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005. Okay. So again, this is a gender-specific law. It's not a gender-neutral law. Only women could be victims of domestic violence. It can't be the other way around. But the perpetrator could be a man or a woman. Okay, but the victim could be only a woman. It's gender-specific. Now, domestic violence is violence perpetrated in the domestic sphere. Okay. In short, anybody with who you are in a domestic relationship, and if that person has perpetrated domestic violence on you, it is domestic violence. In a domestic relationship, now usually whenever we talk about domestic violence, we understand only as marital violence, that is violence by husband on his wife. जैसे कि पति नहीं हुआ वो शैतान हो गया. Okay, so we always say कि मेरा पति ने ऐसा किया, मेरा पति ने ऐसा किया. We understand marital violence, which is good, that we understand it. Okay, or probably in-laws ने violence किया. This is also good. Okay, but what we don't understand that it's not necessarily the husband or the in-laws. Many a times the violence could be perpetrated by our own maternal families. Okay, by our own families, that is by your father or your brother or your mother or your uncle or your grandfather, which we are not able to understand and identify. So a lot of times, even if you look at domestic violence cases, 90% of them are marital violence, okay, by the husband and his family. 10% are by the daughter against the father or by the sister against the brother. And sadly, what I have seen even in the courts is that the judges are not able to understand that domestic violence could be maternal violence also. Okay, and there are very few judgments on that. And probably we ourselves don't understand that we are violated by our own maternal families because it is done in the form of sanskar, in the form of family ka pyar, in the form of being a good daughter, in the form of, and there are varied ways. So, for example, your brother would be given a particular kind of education which you wouldn't be. Okay, your brother is allowed to go out, stay late in the night, but you are not. Okay, or probably you are asked to do a lot of things in the house which your brother is not, or probably oh, you are not supposed to get married as per your choice because love marriages are not good, and this is how, in the name of culture, that being a good girl, you should get married only as per arranged marriage family setup and not otherwise, is also another form of violence which we don't understand, because a lot of thing is done in the name of culture, in the form of sanskar and all of that. But if the boy has a love marriage, it's okay. Yeah, he's a boy, it's absolutely fine. So it happens in a lot of subtle ways. Okay, perpetrated not only necessarily by the husband, it could be the ex-husband, it could be the father, it could be the brother. I remember I had a case which I had discussed in one of the sessions I took in the past, wherein there was this girl who was not getting married. She was at the age of 28, and her parents were forcing her to get married, and finally they put her, literally in the house, not asking her to interact with anybody. And her friend approached her saying that the girl needs intervention. And through the protection officer, we filed a case. The girl was rescued. She was put up somewhere else. her parents came to the court, and the mother kept telling to the judge that the girl was in a lesbian relationship with this friend, and therefore, she's not a good girl, and this is what the mother was doing was the right thing, and the judge was so biased against us. So what I want to tell you is that domestic violence, people find it very difficult that, oh, how could you be violated by your own father or your parents, or how could you be violated by your own brother? क्योंकि हर किसी को अपने अंदर बाप और भाई दिखता है, ओके? पति और उसके घर वाले सबको शैतान लगते हैं, मगर किसी को maternal family समझ में नहीं आता है कि there could be maternal family violence also. And this maternal family violence is far more in intensity and affects you much more than matrimonial violence. But it is very much unspoken about. Look at the property rights, okay? So after the demise of the parents, people think कि property बस बेटे को ही मिलना चाहिए, घर बेटी की तो शादी हो गई, जो देना था दे दिया, okay? अब जो देना था दे दिया, वो तो बेटी के घर वालों यूज करते हैं, sadly, स्त्रीधन के नाम पे वो लोग उठा लेते हैं, ना कि वो स्त्री का धन रहता है, वो ससुराल वाले ले लेते हैं. और यहाँ पे जो आपकी बेटी को प्रॉपर्टी राइट्स आपको देने हैं, वो भी आप नहीं देते हो, बेटा ले लेता है, ओके? और कितनी बेटियां कोर्ट में जाती है अगेंस्ट द प्रॉपर्टी राइट्स, बिकॉज नोबडी वांट्स टू गो अगेंस्ट द मैटरनल फैमिली, क्योंकि tomorrow if I go against them, then who will support me if I'm battered by my husband? So that is what we see. I remember there was this particular case which came to me, and the girl was being harassed by her family, matrimonial family, by the husband and in-laws, and she came over here to her maternal family, and the father came along with the girl and to file a complaint, and he said कि ये मेरी बेटी है, मेरी एक पहली बेटी भी थी, मैंने उसको बहुत दहेज दिया था, पर उसको ससुराल वालों ने जला दी, अभी मैं क्या करता, मैं कुछ नहीं कर सकता था. अब ये दूसरी बेटी है, इसको भी ससुराल वाले जलाने की धमकी दी, अब ये इधर आ गई है, पर मैं कुछ नहीं कर सकता हूँ, मेरे पास पैसे नहीं है दहेज देने के लिए, क्योंकि मैं तीसरी बेटी का दहेज जमा कर रहा हूँ. आप इसको इसके ससुराल भेज दो और उन लोग के ऊपर कार्रवाई करो कि वो लोग उसको कुछ नहीं करे. I said my foot, सबसे पहले तो मैं तुम्हारे ऊपर एक्शन लूंगी कि rather than supporting her, you are literally putting her into the devil's den so that they eat her up, and this was a clear-cut case of a father not supporting the daughter. So if you look at it, the societal pressure is also so much on these fathers that they are ready to forgo their daughters in the name of whatever evils that are happening around us, okay? So maternal violence is absolutely unspoken of, okay? Domestic violence में दूसरी चीज ये है that people understand domestic violence as physical violence only, sadly, okay? But domestic violence is very wide and ambit. It is mental violence, emotional violence, verbal violence, sexual violence, economic violence, okay? So let's say, for example, my husband and in-laws beat me, physical violence, okay? Or probably they tell me you're not having a male child, or probably they tell me that, you are not able to bear a child, or probably they tell me that you got less of a dowry, or probably whatever I work, they take it away from me, economic abuse, or they don't maintain me, okay? Or probably whatever my stridhan is, they have taken away, all economic abuse, okay? Or let's say my husband forcibly has sex with me. This is sexual abuse, okay? There is no marital rape in our country. Just to answer one of the questions of the girls who has put it up to me, there is no marital rape law in the country, sadly. But we will discuss it a little later. But if you look at it in the domestic violence sphere, there is sexual abuse. So you can ask the court that he should not sexually abuse you or force himself on you, provided the court also understands that, okay? But there is a provision under the Domestic Violence Act that it is sexual abuse and you can ask for protection orders, okay? Or the fact that person is depriving you of sex is also sexual abuse, but then you can't force anybody to have sex with you. That is also against human rights, So this is another thing which we need to discuss in a separate forum. Then let's say the father-in-law, your father touches you inappropriately, so that is also sexual abuse. So somebody giving you abuses with sexual connotation is also sexual abuse. So domestic violence is huge, very wide and ambit. It's all kind of abuses that you could think of, and it is not only violence in matrimony but also at your maternal aspect, okay? Now, Domestic Violence Act is basically a civil act, okay? It does not punish the other side. It just prohibits the other side from being violent against you, okay? So the kind of reliefs that you can file in Domestic Violence Act are also very different, okay? So for example, he should not abuse me. I need protection orders, okay? Or you want residence orders that I should not be thrown out of the house, or he should not sell off the house, or the house should be partitioned that I stay in one area, he stays in another area, or he should remove himself from the house, or he should provide me with an alternative accommodation. Okay, so I need residence orders. Then let's say maintenance or monetary relief orders, that every month I need so and so amount of money for monetary relief, or my education has to be sponsored, or I have some medical treatment that money has to be given, or my children's education should be paid, okay, or my monthly maintenance should be paid. So this is another aspect. Then there are custody orders, that my child should be in my custody. The other side should not take away the child from me. Okay, or if the other side has my child, I want my child back, or I want access to the child. Okay, so these are the custody orders. Then there are return of belongings. And these are my belongings. I want my belongings back. Okay. Then there is something which is compensation orders. Okay, for all the mental harassment and emotional abuse that I have suffered, so I need to be compensated. So these are the orders which the court can pass, which are basically prohibitory orders to protect you. Okay, but the court does not punish the other side. It is a civil law. But once the orders are passed to protect you and the other side violates these orders, okay, then it takes the form of a criminal law. Then it becomes the criminal law. Then you can file a case of criminal prosecution against that person. Okay, otherwise the reliefs are civil. So Domestic Violence Act is a civil law, because what the legislatures have realized, that not every woman wants her husband or the other side to be behind the bars. There are women who just want the violence to stop at that point of time. Okay. And they just want like a warning to be given to the other side, that stop the violence. You know, we are here to take care of her. So that is what the essence of domestic violence is. It's not a criminal law. This law is basically in the jurisdiction of magistrate courts. Okay, which is more accessible to women because it's more close by their homes. So, for example, we have approximately 10 magistrate courts in Bombay. Okay, so for example, we have a court of magistrate in Girgaon. Okay, we have it in Mazgaon. We have it in Kila Court, Esplanade at VT. Okay, we have it in Andheri. We have it in Borivali. We have it in Bandra. We have it in Kurla. We have it in Vikhroli. We have it in Mulund, we have it in Thane, okay. So, you know, we have it in Dadar. So you have 10 magistrate courts in Bombay. So if you look at a family court where a woman has to go for reliefs, it is in Bandra. So all the way traveling for the woman becomes difficult. So these courts are in more accessible locations for women, okay, wherein she can ask for civil reliefs, okay. Wherein she need not want the other side to be put behind the bars. Besides this, there is also another law for civil reliefs. So you have your regular maintenance case of 125, or you have your divorce case, okay, or you have your injunction case. But those cases have to go in district court wherever there are district courts, or in family court wherever there are family courts, now that you have family court. And those cases would be filed separately. So maintenance का अलग होगा, injunction अलग होगा, divorce का अगर होगा तो अलग होगा. और हर औरत को divorce नहीं चाहिए, हर औरत को criminal case भी नहीं चाहिए, उसको बस चाहिए कि सामने वाला violence ना करे. Okay, so domestic violence falls in between these two extremes of, you know, not criminal and not totally civil, but something in between to protect the woman. Okay. And multiple reliefs could be asked under the same umbrella: protection, residence, maintenance, custody, compensation, under the same umbrella. It could be asked in a court which is more in proximity to you. Okay, that is the magistrate court. Whereas for the civil relief, you will have to approach the district court or the family court if it is established over there. And you will have to file separate cases. Okay, which adds on to the litigation cost. So domestic violence is considered to be more women friendly. There are certain forms which are available under the Domestic Violence Act, which would be available in Google. You can fill up the forms and you can file the case by yourself. Anybody can file any case by themselves. The representation by a lawyer is not necessary, but a lot of time courts ask lawyers to वो lawyer देते हैं या legal aid में भी आप जा सकते हैं. Okay. So domestic violence has understood that it's not only matrimonial violence, but maternal violence. It could be violence by ex-husbands. It could also be violence in the form of relationship in nature of marriage. So you are living with somebody, okay, and that person dumps you, so you can claim from that person also, okay. So domestic violence is very wide in ambit. Number one, it covers a lot of relationships in domestic violence. Number two, it has understood the widened scope of violence. Number three is that it could be filed under the same umbrella for multiple reliefs. Number four, it could be filed in the court of your area, which is easily accessible to you. Number five, it is not on the extremes, okay? That is neither your marriage would be broken because of divorce, nor would a criminal case be filed. It is something in between, okay? So this is how the Domestic Violence Act was envisaged in 2005 to take care of women who are victims of violence and who don't want to take extreme steps, okay? And it covered a wide range of women also, not necessarily matrimonial violence, okay? There are a lot of stakeholders under the Domestic Violence Act. So you have the police, you have the judges, you have the protection officer. Protection officers are pivotal to Domestic Violence Act. You have the shelter home, you have the counselors, you have the service providers, you have the medical. So you have the legal aid. So these are stakeholders under the Domestic Violence Act. Okay. So let's say you want to approach the court directly, you can go to the court and file a case directly by filling up the forms. Or let's say you want to file it through the legal aid, you can go to legal aid office in Bangalore, you can get yourself a lawyer, or you can tell the particular judge also कि मेरे पास lawyer नहीं है, the judge will direct you to legal aid. Okay. You can go to the protection officer. The protection officers are located in Chembur, near monorail at Chembur Ration Office, and the protection officer for the these are for the suburban, and for the district city they are located in Worli BDD Chawl, where you can approach them. Okay, so you can have these protection officers where you can approach, and you can proceed in the case. The protection officer is supposed to assist you in filing the case in the court, or if you're bruised, to take you to the hospital, or if you want to file a complaint, taking you to the police, or if you want a legal aid, taking you to legal aid. So they're supposed to assist you not only in court but also outside court. Or in case if you are stuck up in some problem, and like for example, I told you how that girl rescued her friend, so that kind of a thing. So this is how the Domestic Violence Act is envisaged. Okay. If you don't have a lawyer, you can go to the legal aid. If you want police assistance, you can go to police. If police has to take your complaint, but additionally, they can also guide you to the protection officer. So this is how the protection of women from Domestic Violence Act looks like. Okay. Now, this is what the law is. This is what you will find it in the books also. But what you won't find in the books is what are the things that you need to keep in mind in terms of evidences, and how do you strategize. Okay. So whenever there is a violence that happens, what I have realized is that women allow it to happen also. And somewhere down the line, they need to be assertive and also say a no to it, which really makes a lot of difference. The first slap that the man gives you, you have to stop it there. And you have to say, हाथ नहीं उठाना, वरना मैं सीधा पुलिस के पास जाऊंगी. It will stop. But once that habit happens, then it keeps, then even if you remove the H, a bit remains. Even if you remove a bit remains. Even if you remove the B, it remains, So then it becomes very difficult once it becomes a habit. Okay. So also standing up for yourself does make a lot of difference. I know it is very easy for me to say, difficult for a woman to do, but this is something which is tried and tested, and my ex-senior used to tell me that this is what she has observed and this is what I have observed. The first time that the woman at the first instance of violence raises herself, that makes a lot of difference. Okay. Number two, if you are in a position like this, you please file a police complaint. There are two kinds of police complaints. One is in the form of NC, the other is in the form of FIR. Okay. NC is non-cognizable, wherein the police is not going to arrest him. FIR initiates the criminal action wherein the person could be arrested. Obviously, in domestic violence cases, they don't arrest immediately. There is counseling and all which is done. But FIR is filed. It's a criminal case that happens, and the person has to appear in court on every day. Okay. Now, whenever you go to the police station, if they tell you, so another difference between NC and FIR is that NC is one page, FIR runs into a couple of pages. Okay. Now, when you go to the police station, in case if they refuse an NC, which ideally they cannot refuse, then what are you supposed to do? Okay. So if an NC is refused to you, you can write a letter in the police station, you can give it in the dispatch, you can take an acknowledgement. Okay. The other thing which you could do is that you can write an email to the police station. If you look at Google Mumbai Police website, you will find all 92 police stations ka details given. Who is the senior officer? What is the email ID? What is the phone number? You can write an email also directly. Okay. You can write a letter and you can send it by post, not by courier. Okay. Because post is a valid service. So that also makes a lot of difference. And you can keep the acknowledgement safe. So these are the ways wherein you can document violence if you don't want an action to be taken. But if you want an action to be taken, then you should go to the police station, file a complaint. If your complaint is not taken up, go and speak to the senior officer of police station. Usually they have 3 stars over here on their shoulders. And in case if they refuse, then you can go to the district to your DCP of your police zone, and you can file a complaint. Okay, if that also doesn't work out, Twitter is a very good option which you can use. And if that also doesn't work out, then you have to file a private case in the court to say that the police has not taken an action. Okay, this in a nutshell is your rights at police station. They can't say a no, and if they say a no, obviously an action could be taken against them, but they cannot deny your complaint. Okay. But you should put a complaint on record as evidentiary value. Okay. Also, in case if the person has messaged you with abuses, mailed you with abuses, WhatsApp chat with abuses, you can use those in the court later as evidentiary value. In case if you're brutally beaten up and there are injuries, then besides taking the photograph, if you take the photograph, it should be with the date and time, and the device on which the photograph is taken has to be saved and kept intact, so that you can show that there is no tampering which is being done. But besides this, okay, you can go to the medical Sarkari Aspatal and you can get your checkup done. You can get your MLC done, which is called as Medico Legal Certificate, MLC, wherein they will check you. They will see कि injury है, किसने मारा है, कितना गहरा है, कैसे मारा है, क्या-क्या दवाई दे रहा है, all those things would be documented. This MLC will never be provided to you from a private doctor. It would be provided only from the medical of Sarkari Aspatal. Okay. So if you're abused, please document it in the form of MLC. This is another thing which I would like to tell you. Okay. And the judges do consider these evidences very important, or your X-ray report or your MRI report or any report, wherein you're being abused. And along with this MLC, it makes a lot of difference. It becomes a very good evidence of abuse. Okay. So this is something how you document your abuses. God forbids if you are being abused. Okay. Now, in case if for maintenance cases, so let's say when you have to file a maintenance case in the court, a lot of times which I have seen in women is that they are very blind to what their husbands are doing. Okay. They are happy with what the husband gets in at home, but then they wouldn't ask kya karte ho. A lot of women are not even aware where their husbands are working, or what they are earning. Then it becomes very difficult in the court, because let's say you file a maintenance case and he's doing very well, but you don't know what he's doing. So he will come to the court and he will be like, yeah, I am working, but I'm not earning as much as I could, you know. And he would say that, you know, mere paas to itna paisa nahi hai. Then in that case, what you end up in the court would be really less than what you should be getting. Okay. So now we have something from the Supreme Court, which is in the form of assets affidavit, wherein both the parties have to fill up at the time of filing a maintenance case, along with your 3-year bank account statement, income tax, salary slip, etc. But if a person is falsifying, obviously it calls for perjury. Your lawyer also has to read the documents properly, call for further documents if needed. But also, you at the stage of getting married also should collect evidences, because you never know what, where, how you would need it. Okay. The fact that whose house you are staying in, घर किसके नाम पे है, वो भी नहीं पता रहता. तो I'll give you an example. It's not just about a maintenance case. It's also about being aware and not being blind in love. It's also being aware in love. So, for example, there was this woman whose husband was very loving and too protective. He never allowed her to even go outside to pick up anything for herself. He would get her everything. One fine day he died. She did not even know what is he working, where is he working, where to go get the ration from. Like, it was that kind of a situation. Okay. So it's very important that love does not mean protection, but love also means freedom, wherein you're making the person independent after you go. Okay. So this is also very important for us in our lives as women, that we realize that. So it's important that what your husband is doing, because God forbid something happens to him, and if you have to claim his property, or if you have to claim his benefits, you know, his insurance, you should know where to go. So first of all, figuring out what the man is working as, any kind of evidence like his visiting card, or in case if he's working in a shop, the house you're residing in is whose name, जिसका नाम पहले राशन कार्ड पे रहता है, यूजुअली उसका रहता है, या इलेक्ट्रिसिटी बिल जिसके नाम पे रहता है उसका रहता है. It is so easy for you to collect it. Okay. Or the fact that, you know, your husband's passbook at home, or in case if you have access to his ATM card, or probably if his insurance papers, or his property papers, or his bills that he pays, you know, so those kind of things that you could have an access of, or his Facebook or his LinkedIn profile, which could help you in the future for a maintenance case. So these are the smallest of things which we need to remember. Okay. The other issue is, nobody can throw you out of your matrimonial house. Okay. In case if somebody is throwing you out of the matrimonial house, you have a right to obviously stay. So we have cases wherein, you know, the daughter-in-laws have gone out to their mother's places for a few days, and the in-laws shut the house, you know, and or probably are in the process of selling the house. And the women are so scared to go back in the house. We are like, break open the door and stay over there, because it's your house, it's your matrimonial house. But women get scared. They're like, "Kabhi kuch chori ka ilzam to nahi lagega." And we tell them, "Chori ka kaise lagega?" Because it's your house. You have a right to stay over there. Okay. So that also is an important thing which you need to know, that you can break open the door and stay in the house, and nobody is going to stop you. But obviously, you should intimate the police that, you know, this is what you are doing and this is how you've been thrown out, and you have no other place to go, so you're residing there. Okay. Women don't even have the evidence that they are staying in the house. So I think that is also very important. So while you're staying in the house, maybe if your name is not in the ration card, then at least incorporate it. Or in case, you know, you have your Aadhaar card or your bank account statement in that particular address, or your obviously your name would be there in children's school calendar showing you at a particular address. Because when you are thrown out, and if you want to approach the court would also want to see whether you were staying there and for how long, you know. So those evidences become too important. Please keep your stridhan and your jewelry and your gold with you. This is a common practice that after marriage, women give everything to their in-laws, to the mother-in-law in their custody, you know. And then if they are thrown out of the house, nothing remains, and claiming the jewelry back from home is so difficult, because वो लोग बोलेंगे कि ये तो ज्वेलरी लेके गई, you know, भले आप बिल दिखाओ, फोटोज बताओ, they'll be like ज्वेलरी लेकर गई, और आप बोलेंगे नहीं ज्वेलरी उनके पास है. So please keep the jewelry with you rather than in their joint locker. It's your stridhan. You have to use it the way you want to. Okay, so that is something. The other thing is, as far as children are concerned, also ensure that if you want the custody of the child to be with you, then please, while you are leaving the house, take the child with you, you know. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to get the custody of the child back. A lot of women get scared कि क्या हम पे kidnapping का case तो नहीं होगा because हम लोग बच्चा लेके गए. Baba, you are the biological mother. How could there be a kidnapping case? Okay. Same goes. Even if the father takes, there can't be a kidnapping case. So it's very important that if you're leaving the house, take the child with you. If you're not able to take, then you approach the court immediately for the custody, because once the child is used to the parent, then a lot of parents try to alienate the child from the other one. Then it becomes very difficult to get the custody back. Okay. So these are certain small things which you need to keep in your mind with regards to custody battles or residence battles or protection evidences in court, or, you know, maintenance evidences in court. Okay. So this is what I wanted to address with regards to domestic violence. Yeah. I'm sorry, but I had to take it very fast because we are also running short of time. And there are a lot of questions which are still in the chat box which I need to answer. If there is any other question, please keep typing so that I can address it. Okay. Also pertaining to domestic violence, I'm now keeping the session open for question and answers. Yeah, we are done with domestic violence. I went in very fast.
Yes, I think Nosheen, it's perfectly fine. I mean, you know, we can go on to the question answer session.
Yeah,
So
there are a lot of
students will not be able to unmute Nosheen because the host has not given them that control. So
yeah, it's in my chat box.
yes,
Students can still type in. Okay, I'll answer one by one. Okay, there is a question that if we raise a voice against sexual harassment, some people ask us for evidence. And if we don't have evidence, then what to do? Okay. See, if you can have evidence for sexual harassment, it's good. Okay. So, for example, I remember one fine day a very senior lawyer sent me a very sexually offensive message. And I was immediate to respond that, listen, sir, I don't appreciate you are like a fatherly figure. Don't do this again. And he, like a fool, message also saying sorry. So he admitted it, but he was apologetic. So I let it go. Okay. So if you look at it, these kind of evidences, very foolish people only will do it, but there is a good evidence for you to count on. Okay. But not necessarily that all the time you would have evidences. If you don't have evidences, it doesn't mean that you are lying. Even the law says that. Okay. If evidence you have to give, but if there is no evidence, it doesn't mean you are lying at all. So that you need to be very rest assured. Okay. Over here, I would like to say that it's also very important for you to be assertive without being aggressive. And there needs to be a clear-cut communication to the other side, wherein you are clearly saying no means no and setting down your boundaries. Okay. Just like men have to respect your boundaries, you also have to create boundaries which has to be known to the person. Okay. I'll give you an example. So I was a very bright student in the college. When I left the college, we exchanged numbers with a lot of our professors. One of them was a male professor, very nice man. Okay. And वो टाइम पे ना मोबाइल बहुत नया नया था, SMS बहुत नए नए थे. So everybody would just send, forwarded messages, and this gentleman would send me non-veg messages. Now I wouldn't like them, okay, but I was too reluctant to get it to the notice of my professor because I thought, अरे यार, his intention is not such. Now you imagine a feminist like me, उसको भी समझ में आ रहा था, its intention is not such, okay, and I did not perceive it. He was just sending it to me like that, but I kept quiet. And he would keep sending me messages. One fine day, I lost my cool and I replied back. I said, sir, please stop sending these messages. I don't appreciate. And please, you're like a fatherly figure. Kindly shut off these messages. Okay. So he immediately replied. He said, Nosheen, I'm really sorry. I really respect you. And I had no such intentions. And you also know that. And I was just sending it because I would send it to everybody. And I wish you would have told me before. I wouldn't have sent you. But irrespective, I will, maintain my boundaries. I said, good enough. Okay. So obviously, I communicated. Now you imagine, had I not communicated, because I also knew that it was not his intention. He was just sending it to me. But I should have communicated earlier. But he should have also maintained his boundaries that without asking, you can't send these messages to people. Okay. So communication makes a lot of difference at times, and it helps you clear out the air and put on table what you are not comfortable with. Okay. So with girls, I would specifically say that if you face a situation like this and if you could communicate, you should communicate. Okay. And evidences, if you're not there, it's absolutely okay, because nobody is going to create evidences for you. Okay. There is another question on marital rape. So, darling, we don't have marital rape in our India, in the country. There has been a discourse, there has been a discussion, there have been cases in the court file that there should be marital rape. Marital rape should be considered as an offense, but the court probably is putting it on the legislature, and probably the legislature might not be keen on forming something like this, because marriage is a separate institution, as if you're giving a license to the other person to do this. But I obviously don't vouch for that. Now, in case of what I have observed is that many a times it's not um, the sex which is causing problems to women. It's the way that the sex is forced, or the way women are beaten up during sex is the problem. Okay. So many a times women are like, it's okay, I also want sex. But the fact is that if he beats me or abuses me or asks me to do something unnatural, I'm not okay with that, and I want that to stop. Okay. So if there is no marital rape law over here, then as a lawyer, I would look at other aspects. Okay. So, for example, there is cruelty by husband and relatives of husband, which is a criminal offense. Okay. Cruelty is obviously not just physical, mental cruelty, but also cruelty in terms of sexual nature. So, in case if he is beating me while having sex with me, obviously I can file a cruelty case against him. Okay. The saddest thing is that the executors of the law, the police walas, okay, and at times the judiciary also don't understand that. Like 498 एक cruelty के अंदर जो अभी BNS में convert हुआ है, they understand cruelty as dowry. कि dowry related harassment होना चाहिए, and we are like कि यार, it's not necessarily कि dowry related harassment ही हो. Okay. It could be any kind of harassment, because uh, the scope is so wide. Okay. And even in my office, I was having those discussions that 498A, जो अभी section 85 of BNS है, it does not mean just this thing, अपना क्या नाम है, dowry related. It has to be anything physical, mental, as well as sexual. And as a lawyer, I have to interpret it so that it can be covered and shown as the fact that a man is cruel to her sexually while having sex, and that is cruelty. Okay. I would appreciate if lawyers interpret it in that way more so. Sadly, we don't have those kind of interpretations coming. Okay. So this is how I would look at it. And domestic violence, I told you that there is sexual abuse also, so you can ask for restraining orders provided the courts understand. Okay. But if there are evidences, if you've been, sexually abused, जहाँ पे आपके साथ anal sex होता है या बहुत काटछील होती है, तो you should collect medical evidences to show कि आपको क्या क्या, या UTI हो गया है आपको, गंदे तरीके से सेक्स करने से, या कुछ प्रॉब्लम हो गया, so you should, या कुछ STD हो गया, तो you should show those evidences in the court in the form of medical, which really helps you out. Okay. Yeah. So, okay. Asha, you're not doing something, or what? You're recording the messages also, I think. Okay. So there is another question wherein a person says that 8th standard student can, that there's a module on reproduction, and as a man, he avoids this particular topic, and he is avoiding teaching this topic out of decency. But would it be a criminal act to revise it? Now, see, the thing is that when you're doing it as a teacher, it's a different thing. But in case if you are just teaching a friend's younger sister all alone, please be safe rather than sorry. Have somebody else also in the room with you while you are teaching that topic. You have to safeguard yourself also, rather than getting into something. Okay, then there is a question that, ma'am, what if a boy is stalking a girl several times and passes dirty comments and the girl is afraid to go to the police? What can she do, or whom can she approach for help in emergency? What is your view? As usual, conservative family believes not to get in touch with police matters and so on. Okay. Um, I would really appreciate if this girl is you and if we can help you out through your professors. Okay. And if the person is talking many times and passing dirty comments, I would literally, slap him. But understanding your situation, I believe this girl is scared to even talk to the police. You have a gender resource cell in your college. Okay, Ayushna, I would really request you to give a little bit of information about gender resource cell and also about where the students could raise up concerns for sexual harassment in your college and who are the committee members. Let's do it right now. Okay. So you can approach your college professors, and I vouch on you that your college professors are fantastic. They will help you out, okay? And they will take up the issue and help you file a complaint against this boy. And if you don't want to file a complaint, the professors will look into it and they will ensure that a complaint is being filed without you being involved in the entire process, because this is also about college safety in case if a person is being harassed like this. Okay, it calls for a third party harassment while you are coming down to your college. Okay, and Ayushna, please look into this particular girl's complaint. Are you able to see her message, Ayushna?
No,
No,
Nasheen,
not.
no.
I will send it to you. How do I send it? A lot of
Can you
people
send me a screenshot on the phone, Nasheen?
Yeah. I'll send it right away to you because this is very important. And I think this girl is.
Students, see, some of you might not know us because today students across all disciplines have joined, and because I teach in the humanities section, a lot of students might not know me, right? So maybe at the end, Nausheen, I will speak briefly about the gender cell and the IC also.
Yeah, and also
It's
who are
very
the
important.
members and how they can approach
Yes,
them, because
absolutely.
I have sent you the screenshot of this message. But this child needs help. Okay, so
Yes,
please
yes,
help her
yes.
out. And you all can ask me any questions. Okay, these messages are private, so the confidentiality would be maintained, and you can reach out to Ayushna. That is not a problem at
Yes.
all. Okay.
Uh,
Um,
Nausheen, can I just take 1 minute of your time? The host, whoever is the host, can you please make me and Suvarna ma'am the host again? Because we've lost host controls and we can't unmute ourselves. I had to call Amrit and she had to sort of make me the sort of, unmute my thing. So, I don't know if you are listening to me.
there is somebody at the door in the office, and I'm
Yes,
alone. So just give me.
yes, sure, Nausheen, sure. By the time that Nausheen comes back, students quickly, whoever is
I
unaware,
I
whoever,
also want to be a part of hearing that. Just a second,
yes,
I'll come back here.
yes. Host, can you hear me? Please make me and Suvarna ma'am the co-hosts. Amrit, can you help Suvarna ma'am and ask her to unmute, please?
Yes, ma'am. Just give
Yes,
me a second.
yes.
Hi, hi, I'm back. Yes. Yes, Aishna. So, if you could just tell us a little bit more about this law, I'll just quickly go through the questions in case if I've missed
Thank
out
you.
anything.
Sure.
In the meantime, if there are any more questions, you can ask me.
Yes, so students, as students of KC College, you must know, and HSNC University, you must know that the college has a gender issue cell. There is a red box, which is like a complaint box near the reception counter, near the lift on the ground floor. You can all sort of write, confidential letters, anonymous letters, and post there. And in cases of any form of harassment that you just learnt about from Nausheen, you can report to the internal committee, which is the IC. Now, who is the head of the IC? The convener is Jade Carvalho from the Department of Psychology, and the IC also has other members like Dr. Vratan, um, and if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Mridula from the Chemistry Department. So you must know, please look up for the IC posters. You know, Nausheen, what happens is that every year we are putting up the IC posters, and some students or some club members, they just remove that and they'll put up some fest poster.
I see,
And
Aishna,
yes,
IC committee is there on our website also.
it's there
So they
on the
can go through,
website. Absolutely, it's there
yeah,
on the
the
website.
committees.
Please
So they
go
would
and check.
please
And
tell them the IC email address. So in case if someone wants to send any complaint,
I'm
they can
posting
email
it.
it.
I'm posting it here on the Zoom chat. The IC email address. Please keep that with you all. And there is an IC at the university also. You know, Professor Kavita, she heads it. So you can all get in touch with me or Mridula ma'am or Jade ma'am regarding these matters, please. Noshin, you can continue, and I will definitely get in touch with this student. Thank you, Noshin.
Yes, yes, please. Okay, so coming back to the topic, there is another question that what are the sexual harassment laws put forth by the transgenders? So if you look at it, you have the Transgender Act also, which has come up in 2019. But besides this, if you look at specifically sexual harassment part of it, okay, if you look at Sexual Harassment Act, as I told you, the victim could be only a woman, the perpetrator could be anybody, okay. With regards to domestic violence, also it's the same thing. But how there was an interesting discourse recently that transgender is also how you identify as to which gender you belong to. So if you identify yourself as a woman, then you know that is the position that you are placed at. Okay. Now, sexual harassment, if you look at it with the BNS, and I think we should have a detailed session later on. BNS के अंदर क्या हुआ है that there are certain sections which are pertaining only to women, but there are certain sections which are gender neutral. Okay, so ideally they would be applicable even over there to the transgenders. Okay, and we would look at it a little more in details later on, wherein I could put it up on the chart and we look at each and every word and try to interpret that particular word accordingly. Okay, so we can just look at it at that particular aspect. All right, but nothing much. There was something which was really nice in the form of 377 IPC, okay, which was basically unnatural sex at that point of time, okay. But the problem was that in the form of unnatural sex, a lot of transgenders were prosecuted saying that you're having unnatural sex and it is a criminal offense, okay. But the fact is, later on, we had a judgment which said that it was decriminalizing that, wherein if you're doing anything in private in your bedroom, obviously it doesn't cover the issue at all. Okay, you can't be prosecuted. But in case if it is something forceful that you are doing outside, then it's a different story. Okay, but not what you are doing in your private capacity. So the law was misused there. Okay, but it was really good because there were a lot of women also who faced unnatural sex in the form of oral, anal, or something they were not comfortable with. But also there were men who were, in this particular category who were forced for something. Okay. So that was very nice. But the problem is that this was not taken care of in the BLS. That was the issue which did miss out while the new law came up. Okay. Besides that, if you look at POCSO, the child covers everybody as a definition. Okay. So this is what I could mention over here in a nutshell. But I really suggest that we should have a separate session which covers BNS in the form of a chart and we see the IPC and BNS, the differentiation. Yeah. I can see Ayeshna putting up internal committee at kccollege.edu.in as your email ID for sexual harassment cases. And trust me, this will be done all in confidentiality, wherein people wouldn't get to know about it. Okay. So you can be rest assured on that. Yeah. And Ayeshna, in case if any student needs a legal consultation, I'm available. We can do it only with the intervention of your college and we can work out accordingly. Okay, so I don't think so that should be an issue at all. Yeah, I believe I've touched upon a lot of questions and I have answered everything. I'm just scrolling up if I've missed out. Okay, there was a question that in a crowded place, if some girl is being harassed and she's being touched, and the person says that, oh, I did it by mistake, it was not my intention. But if you, as a girl, believe that his intention was that and it is your perception, you should take it up. It doesn't count as a mistake. Okay, because it is your perception over the intention that matters, and you can go to the police or you can come to the college in case if it is quite frequent. You should get it to the notice. Sorry. Actually, there was another new message that came up and again went down. What kind of measures can be taken in case of image-based sexual assault? Can you please clarify this question further? What do you mean by image-based? Are you talking about visual sexual
Photos,
assault?
maybe photos that are being shared.
Okay. So, if you could be a little more clear about what kind of photos, that is, if somebody is sending you photographs or somebody has captured you and circulating your photographs. Okay. Anyways, what I'll do is that I'll cover both the aspects. If somebody is sending you the photographs, this is pornography. It is a sexual assault and you can report it to the police. It is a crime. Okay. So you can immediately, and you should save it so that you can show it to the concerned police officer because that counts as an evidentiary value. And obviously, you have to literally send a message to the person that this is not appreciated so that that counts as an evidence. Number two, if you are being captured, okay, then that's a problem in case if your image is being circulated. Because what we have realized is that a lot of young people do get into acts of intimacy and they are being captured and then they are being threatened of circulating those videos. If you have any of such things, I know you are at a very vulnerable stage, but also you need to remember that while you are indulging into all these things, one is the POCSO aspect that you need to consider, okay, that you're not involving yourself in a problem. Number two is that kindly do not keep your mobile phones on while you are getting into these kinds of acts. This goes as a safety caution. Also, while you are doing video callings and all, ensure that you are not into a state which is inappropriate because it could be misused in any which way. Same goes with Zoom calls or any such video calls. Ensure that you're not sharing videos or dirty videos of yours or dirty pictures of yours or dirty chat of yours because you don't know how this is going to be misused. But if there is a threat of being misused, you can approach the police. The issue is in case if it is put up on social media like Facebook, etc., then you need to contact Facebook. I believe they have an option of reporting abuse. Okay. And you can also, approach the police department. You need not go to the IT cell directly. You can go to any police station which is there in your area and file a complaint with regards to that. Okay. And they will take it up with the appropriate authorities. And obviously, they will ensure that the photographs are being deleted, but then it would be too late by then, because people would have already started circulating. So it's better to be safe than sorry. Also, while you are in a relationship, kindly remember that you don't have the right of being abused or abusing somebody in the relationship. Okay. A lot of times I have seen girls at a vulnerable stage like you who get into a relationship and who are abused in the name of love, thinking that possessiveness is love as well. Okay, but I would like to clarify that possessiveness is possessiveness and it's not love at all. Somebody controlling you, beating you because you're talking to somebody else is obviously not love, and it's a red flag which you need to really take note of. Okay, somebody asking you for your private photos or showing you something private is a red flag, and you need to be really aware about this person. You'll be getting into a mess. Okay, yeah. Any other questions?
Anyone has any other question?
Actually, I'm scrolling up and then something comes in, I immediately
Yeah, that's what.
go.
students can unmute in case they feel their questions are not answered, or maybe just
They are
retype.
unable to unmute actually. Students
Okay.
don't have the unmute
Okay.
option with them.
Just retype in case something is important and ma'am is not addressed. Just
Yes.
type again.
If not, Nausheen, can we go ahead and maybe conclude the session if there are no further questions?
Yeah, I can't see further questions. There was one
Yeah.
girl who asked me which law would you like to create, which would be a sum of all. I really don't know. I prefer that we better have different laws, and that is better to
Yes.
address different needs and concerns rather than making a hodgepodge out of it and leading to nowhere. I'm pretty satisfied with the kind of laws we have, but I feel what
Kavita ma'am has raised her
Kavita
hand.
ma'am wants to
Kavita,
say something. No, Amrit, can you quickly just
unmute
unmute
ma'am.
Kavita
Yeah.
ma'am? Request her to unmute.
Yeah, but I would like to have a law basically pertaining to keeping an eye on the execution. That is, the police want us to execute the laws better way. That is what I would do, because it would
Okay.
benefit everybody if they do their job well. Yeah. Yes, Kavita. Oh, is
Kavita,
it Kavita? My professor? Is she my
yes,
professor?
Yes,
yes.
yes.
Hi, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Hi, Nausheen. Hi, Nausheen. I'm so sorry if there is a lot of ambient noise because I'm traveling. But I just wanted to pitch in at this juncture, since you were talking about digital, um, uh, toxic relationships on a digital platform. I just thought, I would highlight the fact that these days there are a lot of apps. They are dating apps, and there has been a recent controversy about an app called the Friend app.
Okay.
And a lot of women have faced either bullying as well as harassment. And, they lure women into the saying that, oh, this is a very safe app. You can make friends easily. There is no charge involved, etc. And as a result of which, a lot of young subscribers to this app are also getting harassed and blackmailed, etc. So what would you like to say about, as a word of caution for a lot of our students who are quite active on these social media things, and then there is so what are the steps they can do to safeguard themselves? And secondly, where is the redressal possible if in the event of a problem?
Okay. So, ma'am, number one is that I really feel I need to keep myself updated because I'm not aware about Friends app. But yeah, I am aware about a lot of apps which are causing a lot of issues, not only to young women and students, but also to a lot of elderly women. Okay. So, for example, you have these matrimonial sites. Okay. Or probably you have these bungee apps, God knows what are they called. Okay. And a lot of time we've got women who are signing off on these apps to get a matrimonial alliance. I'll come down to your question also. Thinking that they would be getting a new good partner or a good partner, but trust me, the kind of relationship they end into these matrimonial apps are so crazy. You end up with abusive partners, you end up with some nasty people, you end up with some fraudsters, and then you are filing divorce cases against these people, and it becomes really difficult. And how do you hold these apps accountable? Because if you look at these sites, they are not the kinds who are going to do the verification for you. They will just put the detail on the site the way it is, and there afterwards you are responsible for whatever it happens. Okay. So number one, and we also see that a lot of women do get lured in the process wherein they get into sexual relationship with these men, thinking that they would be getting married, and then it's another circle of issues. Okay. So number one is that you have to be very cautious while you are on these apps, okay, or in these matrimonial sites. Most of them, even if they are of repute, okay, they are not guaranteeing you with regards to anything, okay. Number two, also with regards to dating apps, because I'll give you an example wherein my client's husband is a big time flirt, and we are basically into a domestic violence case. Now he sleeps with every other random woman. So she sent him a friend request on a social media profile in an anonymous name. Now, because he feels that she's another woman, he's blurted out a lot of information to her. What kind of car he has, where is the flat, and we are obviously going to use this information against him. Okay. So what I want to say is that though this is a blessing for us, okay, but it's going to be not a blessing for him. And you have to be very careful with the kind of information that you share with the other person. You are not supposed to share your address. You're not supposed to, I would suggest that be very careful in sharing your phone numbers also, because under the guise of being friends with someone, probably you are inviting yourself sexual harassment troubles, but also a lot of economic harassment troubles. Okay. So a lot of economic frauds are happening through your WhatsApp numbers, because if you look at it, you're doing your GPay, you're doing your Paytm through these particular numbers only. Okay. And if you look at it these days, you will get a call or probably a video call from some random numbers. Okay. Or probably your Facebook has some video call, or probably you are asked to be added by somebody who's already a friend of yours and has created a fake profile. And then they ask you for money, or probably they ask you to click a link to vote for them. Okay. Or probably they ask you to share a picture so that you could be put up into some particular platform. Please don't get into all these things. Okay. You are calling not only for an economic fraud, and we should have a separate session with regards to that, because we have a lot of cases of economic fraud coming here in this office. Okay. Wherein young girls of your age are being promised a job, wherein you sign up on social media profiles, you look at some websites, you sign up over there, they promise you of a job, they sign some random contracts with you on WhatsApp, which is legally not permissible. Then they add that you have violated the contract, and some lawyer sends you a notice on WhatsApp, which is again ridiculous. And then some police wala calls you again on WhatsApp, which is so ridiculous. I'm like, they are not very techno savvy to do all of these things. Okay. पुलिस वाले आपको पुलिस स्टेशन में बुलाएंगे, ऐसे फोन के ऊपर आपके साथ चिट चैट नहीं करेंगे बैठकर. ओके. अभी तो हद हो गई है जहाँ पे लोग जज भी बन जाते हैं and they chit chat. So please be very careful, because under the guise of sexual assault, you will also be entangling yourself into economic frauds also, which is very upcoming. Your Aadhaar card, your PAN card, your phone numbers which you are using and connected to WhatsApp, you have to be very careful not to leak it out. Your house address, your sexual preferences. There shouldn't be any dirty chats, is something which I would really like to make clear. There shouldn't be any exchange of pictures between you, because you don't know who is the person you are talking to and how is this information going to be used against you. Okay. No getting into video calls, until and unless you're really satisfied and you've met this person. Don't be desperate is something, and don't try to go with the flow of what a lot of other young people are doing. Just because the crowd is going in one direction, you need not go in that particular direction. You have to take a stand for yourself. Okay. So you have to be very careful about the personal information, also about the information of your family members, what your father is doing, what your mother is doing, what your brother is doing, which school is he schooling into. You never know who are you talking to. Okay. And I have also seen, also the sexual and economic frauds also take place in a very different way. For example, there was this girl who was a lawyer, intern in our organization, in the past organization I was working in, and she got a friend request from a man claiming himself to be from abroad, and there was this Britisher ka photo which was put up. She accepted his request, and then when she accepted that particular request, they became very pally with each other in 1 week time, which I really find very funny, that in 1 week time you're pouring your heart out to a person. And she said she has a boyfriend from British, and one fine day she says that, and we were not bothered, like, whatever you are doing, it's your personal life, what are we supposed to do? One fine day she said, I think I have been, probably entangled into an economic crime. I said, what happened? She said that he sent me a gift, and he said that the gift is stuck up with the customs office, and I have to give around 2 lakhs for it, and it's almost 1 crore ka gift that he sent. So I gave 2 lakhs, and then he asked that it needs 1 more lakh. I again give 1 lakh. Then he asked me for 2 more lakhs. I again give 2 lakhs. Then he's asking it needs 5 lakhs, and otherwise it would be stuck and I wouldn't be getting. And then I realized after siphoning of 5 lakhs that, is it really a gift or not? And when she came to me, I just yelled at her that what kind of a lawyer you are, that you're getting carried away with all this stuff, And then when we went to the police station, the police people are also yelling at her that you don't have the brains, that despite being an intern yourself and, doing this, and you just got carried away. just because that man had a wonderful picture of himself, and by chatting, you fell in love with him. And obviously, she did not get those 5 lakhs back, because ideally, there is a huge crime which takes place wherein you give the money and the money is divided into so many accounts that the police wallahs also find it difficult to trace, and you just are swayed with an FIR and a case. Wo dhoondte reh jaoge. Okay. So this is one thing, that along with sexual offenses, you can also be entangled into economic offenses. Please don't fall prey to this. Okay. No disclosing. You should just say hi, hello, and keep over here things the way they are, and not these kind of things. Ayushna has also messaged that there are a lot of digital arrest happening. Yeah, I just spoke about the digital arrest. I got a call from a friend, and she said recently, around 2 months back, that Toshin, I'm entangled in a drug case. I said, what are you talking? And I was in the court. She was calling me frantically. I was like, what are you talking? And then she told me that this particular officer called, and he said that, I'm entangled in a drug case and he needs my Aadhaar card and PAN card. I said, delete it right away. She said, no, I have sent it. I said, delete it right away, otherwise I'll come over there and I'll slap you. She was not even ready to hear me. I had to scream at her. She deleted. I said, you idiot, you were stuck up in an economic fraud like this, and they would have probably siphoned all your money. Have you given them any details? She said, no, but the policeman is going to come to my house. I said, if he wanted to come, he would have come. He wouldn't have asked you for these details over here. And we are here to defend you. And then she's like, now the court procedure is also starting. I said, no, nothing like that it starts over here. And then I told her, go to your bank, just tell them that this has happened. No transaction should take place because your PAN and Aadhaar is with them. I told her, you go to the police and file a complaint on a safer side. So it's just happening rampantly, and people are getting, and not only sexual, but also economic. Okay. Yeah, be aware and not blind in love. Be an aware, alert lover, not a lover who's blindfolded with things. Okay. But please don't share any confidential photos or anything which could be misused. If you are there to have a nice time, just have a nice time. That's it. You don't have to get into any divulge into any personal information. I also feel it really is a larger concern that we are falling into a vacuum of loneliness to such an extent that we are not looking at people around us, but we are looking at strangers who we can't trust and pulling our hearts out. I think we really need to delve into the issue a lot more in details, and we really need some kind of a counseling session in masses, that which way are we going and what are we doing, because this is really becoming a matter of concern. You have people around you, but you don't want to talk. You want to talk to strangers and get yourself into a problem. So this kind of a thing. Also, while you are in a relationship, see, as far as intimacy is concerned, it's totally your lookout, okay? But don't fall for something wherein you will be entangling yourself into cases, even as boys, POCSO cases. But also the fact that somebody asking you for your private videos or photos is something that you should be really very aware of. This person is really not a trustworthy person. Okay, somebody boasting about you, about your body, wherein you have to put yourself in a particular way that you're not comfortable with, is something which is really a matter of concern, and you should think about it. Yeah. Okay. Do we have any other questions? I don't think so.
So I take this opportunity to thank Nausheen Yusuf. Ma'am, you have spent 3 hours, more than 3 hours, and you have given us exhaustive information with respect to the sexual harassment at the workplace and at the domestic level. You tried touching upon almost everything which is important, like Vishakha guidelines you mentioned about. You talked about how we need to maintain the cultural boundaries and respect each one's their religious beliefs, and so give respect to their opinions as well. You also mentioned about how the laws are the gender specific, so that gives an upper hand for the women who are victims, so that we don't go ahead and we actually get the right information at the right time. So you have made actually all of us aware, and you have given us an eye-opening session to our students. It was wonderful. It was really exhaustive in information content wise. So maybe some of our students who have inhibitions in messaging you now, maybe they'll come. We are hoping they will talk to us as internal committee teachers. Will get some feedback about it. Also, Aishna and Leena ma'am are the gender issue cell coordinators and members. So our students are also welcome to talk to their teachers as well. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nausheen ma'am. I also take this opportunity to thank the Vice Chancellor of our HSNC University, Colonel Professor Hemlata Bagla. She has given us this platform, and on regular basis, I know you speak to our third year students, especially girls, on a yearly and regularly basis. So thanks a lot, because this information coming from a lawyer, coming from an advocate, which is appreciated by the students, and they know that this is information from authority, so they will believe more about it, and they'll be aware. They'll read more about it. They will chat, discuss more about it when it has come from you. Also, a lot of thanks to our principal, Professor Tejashree Shanbag, who was all cooperative when she heard your name. She said, yes, this session must happen on Women's Day. So thanks to her. Our vice principals, who are very cooperative, very helpful. Professor Shalini Sinha, Professor Rajesh Samant, Dr. Ritika Pathak. These are our vice principals who are always helpful to us. I thank Professor Leena Pujari because she's the one who always suggests us a resource person. And for today's session, there was no better than Nausheen Yusuf, who has been dealing and working in this area for more than 20 years. So the information was lots. Information was very serious. And I hope students have made a note of what their fears and what their concerns are. A lot of thanks to Aishna Datta. Thank you, because with her help only, I could coordinate with you. Thank you, students, for your patient listening. And I hope you all have made a note of what is relevant to you. Everything what ma'am spoke was very, very important and very relevant. So please make a note of such sessions and take benefit from this. So thank you, our office staff. Why? Because of their help, we could have this Zoom meeting. As technical help is being provided by Monish. Thanks a lot to Monish and Roshan. Thank you so much, ma'am, once again, and have a great day ahead.
Thank you so much. Wish you all the same. And thank you for giving me the opportunity. And Suvarna, it was such a wonderful vote of thanks, which was so inclusive of everybody's name, which is so important. You did not miss out anybody. Aishna, thanks to you. Poor thing, we chat at any point of time in the day, whenever we find time. Last night, she sent me the link after 1 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken, and I was responding.
That's because I was working, yeah, and then I just wanted to finish, and then
Yeah, very hardworking and dedicating team. Aishna, Suvarna, Leena Pujari ma'am, and Kavita ma'am. It was wonderful that I heard you. I wish I could see you. And it was I thought, okay, hi Kavita, tell me, and then I realized that Kavita Peter, she's my professor. So it was wonderful. Thank you so much for being there. And Kavita ma'am has left an interesting point. She's mentioned about an article which covers these kind of scams. So you should look at these articles, because जितना technology progress हो रहा है ना, उतना उनके innovative ideas progress हो रहे हैं. Like they think 10 times ahead of us in terms of scams. And in fact, you all should have a separate session just on cyber frauds that take place. I can't tell you, the office is flooded with these kinds of cases. Yeah, with a lot of youngsters, old people coming in. In fact, the lady who works in our office, her daughter was about to be scammed, and at least she consulted us, she was saved, So it's rampantly happening. Please do have a separate session on this. Okay. And for that session, I suggest you should call a police officer also who could address this issue along with a lawyer, So this will give you an overall stuff. Please take it as an advice from my side. Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye. I'll sign off. Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, Nosheen. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We'll meet soon. Yes, thank
Yeah,
you.
we'll meet on Monday. Bye. Take
Yes.
care. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, students. Thank you, Suvarna ma'am.
Thank you, Ashna.
Thank
So,
you, Kavita
Monish,
ma'am, for joining. I think Kavita ma'am is unable to mute,
yes,
sort of unmute and speak because of host controls. So, thank you, students. Should we?
Yeah, Monish can close the meeting.
Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.